I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you guys know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can find me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can find me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. So great to see you once again joining me. We do have a theme tonight for the show. It is Players Wanna Play, and it all makes sense later on when we get to the stories. But first and foremost, I do have a special guest tonight. I want to go ahead and show you this viral video of him that was featured on MSNBC. So tonight's special guest is Jason Chukwuma. He is a content creator on TikTok. His channel on TikTok is called Truth is Speaking, and he's also a Harvard Law School student. But many of you may have seen this video of him that made a lot of rounds on Twitter. Shout out to Case Study QB for this clip here. He had a lot to say about the healthcare industry and the Democratic Party. Listen to this.
I am still watching the reactions of establishment Democratic politicians to this United Healthcare assassination and increasingly realize why we lost the election. I mean, just the totally missing the moment, missing the point, repeating all these empty platitudes like violence is never the answer. And instead of responding to all of the outpouring of sympathy and cynicism and outrage, not towards the shooter, but to our healthcare system, Democrats spend no time speaking or even trying to understand what is the rage and dissatisfaction that drives ordinary people to support a cold-blooded murderer. Well, not only none of the problems get solved, but all of them get actively worse. And that the only place to channel the rage is through the right's alternative, the right's presentation of an anti-establishment candidate in Donald Trump, who will not solve any of the problems that people care about, but is the last protest vote that people have to register their disdain and contempt for a broken system. As long as Democrats are seen widely to be the party that is the spokesperson for the system most Americans despise, and that events like this just allow that reality to burst forth to the surface in a dramatic way, we will never recapture the political discourse from the right.
Joining us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That was Jason Chukwuma. Jason is here with me tonight. I want to go ahead and bring him in. Welcome to the show, Jason. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, Isaac. Thank you for having me on.
So that video, Case Study QB is phenomenal with clipping these vids. He watches a lot of news so that many of us that do this don't have to. And we have the Case Study QB clips. But this clip in particular is creating a lot of buzz. Is it fair to say that you are Gen Z?
I'm like right on the border. I like to think of I align more with Gen Z than with millennial, but I'm 1997, so I'm like really right on the border of Gen Z to millennial. But yeah, I think I would count as Gen Z to be like my generation. What comes after them? Like the kids 2000 and after, I can't speak for them. They're on their whole other wavelength. But you know, if you were around when Bill Clinton was president, then yeah, like we have a lot in common.
So I think it's really interesting. Again, I've been given, a lot of, shout outs towards the younger generation. I'm a millennial, an older millennial, and I just like a lot of the passion that I see coming from your group in particular, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party. And I want to start with that, and then we'll move forward to the healthcare situation.
Mm-hmm.
This presidential election, I think, really exposed some things for the Democratic Party that I think many of us already knew was happening on the ground, but we're not heard from, obviously. Like when they have these focus groups, they have certain people. A lot of times it's certain people that are going to portray their narrative that they want to hear, regardless of what the network is at that point in time. What were some of the feelings that you heard, particularly like from some of your friends about this presidential election and this possibility of Donald Trump winning again? I want to hear from you. What were some of the things that you heard?
Well, I mean, I should start at the outset, right? It's important to know, I think from the time that we had that disastrous debate between Biden and Trump, I think a lot of people who were obviously very much outside of the Trump camp, very outside of the MAGA camp, and even people that had problems with the Democratic Party establishment, such that I called out in my video, were still hoping that either Joe Biden or the Democratic candidate would win. But I think something decisively changed after that moment, where Democrats felt like they were on the defensive and really felt like it was very much their election to lose unless they did something drastic to turn the momentum around. We saw later on in the election with the surprise switch up at the top of the entire ticket, not just at the top with Kamala Harris coming up late. There was like hoping against hope. Like we knew the odds were still kind of against us. The polls were sort of 50-50 for a very long time, even after very strong moments like the debate performance where she totally wiped the floor with Trump. And, that was like the high point, the inflection of her campaign. There was still hope. And I think some people wanted it to be certainty, but in reality, I think we knew deep down it was a sort of guarded optimism. But either way, people were holding their breath. So I was saying this months before the election happened. I said, listen, and this was even before Biden dropped, but it became even truer once Kamala took the spot. I said, listen, one way or another, we are going to learn a lot about the type of country we live in after this election. There were a lot of questions that were raised in 2016 when Trump first ran, but the issues were not settled until this election. And I think that was part of the gravitas of the moment that we all felt on some level, right? And that's why even as me, as a content creator, someone with a platform, I was actually very quiet during most of the campaign on my own channels because before, my title on TikTok is literally "Truth is Speaking." So I'm like, listen, if I'm going to adopt this mantle when I speak, I want to be absolutely sure about the situation that we are living in collectively in this country and in this world because of the influence that our country has. I want to be sure before I can really formulate my thoughts about what words need to be spoken to people in this political moment, what sort of realizations do we need to come to. So I think when the election happened, it wasn't like in 2016, because I was actually, funnily enough, I was at Harvard for both times. Like I was starting my undergrad, college experience when Trump got elected the first time, and I'm back here now at the law school. But I remember in 2016, there was a lot of shock and surprise. Everyone thought Hillary had it in the bag. That was not the feeling that I saw a lot of people around me displaying after this election. It was like a silent despair, a numbness. It was both a bitter pill to swallow, but there was something about the clarity that it gave us. It's like, okay, we can stop pretending that we live in this mythological America that we wanted to believe we did, that people like Barack Obama told us to believe in, that people like Kamala Harris were trying very late in the game to inspire us to believe again. And when that message was rejected by, as far as our polarized and stratified system will allow, a landslide election for Trump, right? This was the first election that he won the popular vote, won both houses of Congress, and also obviously won the Electoral College. I mean, people want to argue about the size of his mandate, but I think what's really not clicking is how much Trump has normalized the abnormal in American politics, where the reality is someone like Donald Trump should have never been president at all. And it's one thing when the harms he was going to cause were hypothetical, but after nearly a decade of seeing Trump on the national political scene and the havoc he's caused and how this country, what it looks like after 10 years of Trump versus what it looked like before, not saying we were perfect before, but never underestimate the ability of things to get worse. It's like the fact that someone like Donald Trump, his personality that had his track record, could even be a viable candidate in the first place and then win re-election with an even stronger mandate than he came in with in 2016. That really was the wake-up call, and that really pushed me into action. It pushed sadly, it's pushed a lot of my other friends around me into despair. But I'm like, now is the time to be talking about solutions and really doing the thorough autopsy about what went wrong. And the reality is that starts on the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. That's what we have to talk about.
I think it's really interesting too, because one of the things that I noticed is that when we look at the demographics, the outcome of the election, Kamala Harris lost the youth vote. When you compare her numbers to Joe Biden in 2020 and even Hillary Clinton in 2016, she did not receive the same numbers when it came to the youth vote. And I contribute a lot of that to Gaza. A lot of young people, and not just young people, but a lot of young people were very angry, obviously, and rightfully so, about the genocide in Gaza. And I think the Democratic Party felt as though, well, we're still going to win anyway because, you know, it's us against Donald Trump. And I do feel like there was a lot of focus on, let's just talk about how bad Donald Trump is instead of what you just mentioned, solutions. And I think that's what people want to hear. Like, a lot of people are struggling economically. I've heard it since the beginning of the pandemic. People have been struggling economically. You're in the Boston area just like I am. I'm sure you've seen a number of businesses that have closed since the pandemic.
Especially in Harvard Square. Yeah, like a bunch of them. Yeah, very much so.
I just read an article today that said Whitney's in Harvard Square is closing after 70 years. I mean, these are like mom and pop local businesses, you guys, that have just fallen under since the pandemic. And even now, like, we're in 2024, but we're still seeing businesses close. So the economy was a big one, I think, for a lot of people. That's what I heard from voters that I spoke to on the ground. And I've had voter panels on this show over and over again. And for whatever reason, and I wish I could say I don't know who was advising her, but I think we know this now because her staffers have come forward. They really felt like the focus should be on how bad Donald Trump is and running on, Roe v. Wade. And what I found when I spoke to voters on the ground is that Roe v. Wade was not a number one issue for most voters. And this is something that I worried about because I was like, I don't think they realize that this is not number one for a lot of people, especially people who are struggling economically. They're more focused on, okay, how am I going to keep the lights on next month? The business I just told you about, Whitney's in Harvard Square, part of the reason why they're closing is because they can't afford to pay the rent anymore. So again, economic reasons. We understand that Kamala Harris didn't have a long time to campaign. So that's not something I think a lot of people are willing to hold against her. Like, that was to no fault of her own. But I do think what happened here, the way that the events kind of transpired, where Joe Biden stayed in as long as he did, obviously did not want to get out of this race, but also Kamala Harris did not participate in the Democrat primary. There were people running in the Democrat primary. There was Marianne Williamson. There was Dean Phillips, RFK, before he dropped out and decided to run as an independent. And we don't need to get in RFK. That was a whole disaster, whatever he was trying to do. But those people were conveniently ignored by corporate media. And there really should have been a serious Democrat primary, meaning that they should have allowed debates to happen. That didn't happen. And Kamala Harris was selected. And I think that also may have had like sort of an impact. But long story short, now we're hearing like even establishment Democrats and more so on corporate media say that maybe Bernie Sanders was right, that maybe populism does win. And I want to get your take about that.
I'm so glad you brought it to Bernie, because I was about to interrupt when you were talking about the primary. Here's the problem with having a Democratic primary. The Democratic Party primaries are not democratic. That is how 3 election cycles in a row, we got stuck with an establishment pick. The only reason why Bernie, we don't know if he was going to win the presidency, but the only reason why he was not the nominee in 2020 was because of an organized conspiracy within the Democratic Party. We don't talk about this enough. They just said, we don't want the left populists to take control of this party, whether that was because it was out of a good faith belief that they really thought the country would not go for it and that would ensure victory for Donald Trump, or the more cynical claim that the Democrats fear the left wing of their party more than they fear the radical right wing of the Republican Party. I'll leave it to the viewers to decide which theory is, more compelling to them. But the problem is the Democratic primaries themselves are not democratic. And the main issue, and this ties back to the healthcare issue, this ties back to most of the political issues that we have, is that until the Democratic Party can separate itself from the establishment of corporate interests that have been propping up the party basically since the Clinton era, they will never be able to regain the credibility with the working class of all nationalities and ethnicities and races. So long as and that's what I was talking about in my video, as long as you are seen as the mouthpieces of the establishment. We know Trump is a con artist, but all of his rhetoric is designed to appeal to the anti-establishment rage that is in this country. That is what the reaction to this healthcare shooting, we have the warning signs flashing everywhere. The fact that it's both people who would call themselves conservatives and liberals having the same reaction to a criminal act that our political class is having a totally opposite reaction to tells you everything you need to know. I mean, New York State is now having wellness sessions for CEOs. That's how bad it's gotten. But I just know based off their track record, the Democratic Party is not going to take this to heart. So it's like we should have primaries in both parties that are competitive, because as long as the interests, the special entrenched interests in the Democratic Party are able to basically kill any kind of left-wing insurgency that would actually make the party relatable to normal people again, they'll never stop tripping over themselves, and they're going to leave the entire country vulnerable to the fascist takeover by the MAGA movement and what comes after it. Because I promise you, what comes next is going to be more radical than what it is right now.
These are really good points. And I think we all see that when there is economic despair, usually the pendulum swings in the other direction. Like during the pandemic in 2020, there was a lot of economic despair. A lot of people were getting laid off from jobs. We were under lockdown here in Massachusetts. So I saw a lot of people either have a layoff or they lost their job or they were just kind of in limbo at that point in time. So the pendulum swung in the other direction and Biden won. This time around too, obviously there was still economic issues, different types of economic issues, but still a problem. Like the grocery prices are a big one that I still continue to see and hear about. And so the pendulum swung in the other direction back over to Donald Trump. And so I think that this brings me to this point. I have been advocating for probably 2 years now for people to break away from the duopoly and to push forward the third party. When I look at the Green Party, I see what the Democratic Party used to be for the working class. A little bit further than that, though, because the Green Party does also support reparations. So it's like a Bernie platform with reparations. As much as the Democratic Party talks about climate change, the Green Party has been talking about that for years and talking about the next steps that we need to take. And one of those includes ending these wars. As long as we have these wars, we're really not going to make a huge change when it comes to the climate in this country. That's just a matter of fact. And I wonder, what is your take on that? Because I did notice, I voted for Jill Stein. I'm not going to ask you who you voted for or whatever, but I voted for Jill Stein for that reason, because I just, both of these parties, to your point, are corporate and they're captured by corporations or the war machine. So one or the other or both at most times. And the few politicians that have run a grassroots campaign, like people like Cori Bush or Jamal Bowman that did get in, you see big money put against them to push them out. What do you think about this idea of trying to advocate for something outside of the duopoly?
I understand and empathize with the feelings of people that do decide to vote third party because their conscience cannot allow them to vote for one of the two political parties. I'm just very pessimistic because of how well the two parties have designed the system at every level to entrench their advantage. I'm very skeptical, especially with how divided and polarized the country is right now. I'm very skeptical that you'd be able to build the critical mass you would need for a national movement that would stand a realistic chance of beating the two established parties at the national level. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. Frankly, what it's really going to take is, we can talk about it all we want, but we forget how real social movements happen in this country. It is a lot of work at the grassroots level for years. It starts with winning little city council elections, then sheriff elections, and then who knows, state representative. That is where it has to start before you take the thing national, and it has to be coordinated across the states at the grassroots level. So if you want to do that, we can do that, but that's going to require a lot of intention and will and determination that I hope we can muster. I'm not sure. The easier path is, I think there's there are two examples that I think in my mind create a pathway for not creating a third party, but having an insurgency within an existing party to take it over. And we saw someone run exactly this playbook recently. It was exactly what Donald Trump did to the Republican Party in 2016. He came in and turned the party inside out and basically made it, obviously he did it for terrible reasons, and what he did was create a cult of personality around himself, but he did it using this anti-establishment sentiment to make voters feel like among the choices within the party, he was the one best positioned to take on all of these special corporate interests. Obviously he's not going to do that, but that is the rhetoric he used, and that's what his followers believe. And to your point, when you were talking about Cori Bush, them being flushed out with money, the real impediment to doing this really is the money. But what Kamala showed us when she raised $1 billion in basically 100 days, and like this mad dash run for the presidency, mostly coming from like normal people. Like, yes, she got PAC money. Yes, corporations donated. But what I was shocked about, particularly that figure in the first 24 hours when she raised some hundreds of millions of dollars, or some tens of millions of dollars, that most of it came from just normal average people. It's like, wait a second. When we pool our money together, we could actually be an interest group as wealthy and influential as like an ExxonMobil or an Amazon. The problem is we're all scattered. There's no coordinated effort. I think what we need is an insurgency campaign in the Democratic Party funded by like a citizen super PAC, call it something like that, where we all pool our money together to find alternatives to the establishment. People who don't have to take money from United Healthcare, don't have to take money from Pfizer, don't have to take money from Raytheon, but they still have the resources to run a competitive national campaign against the best person that the two parties can normally put up. I think something like that is really what it's going to take.
But to your point earlier, what you said about the Democratic Party rigging the primaries, we would run into the same problem because, see, we did do that with Bernie Sanders. Like Bernie Sanders had the most money in 2020 and also a lot of them small dollar donations. Like I know when I would donate to Bernie, it was like small dollars. It was like $27 here, $27 there, but it did add up like over time. So he had the most money, but in the end, you know, like they played against him in 2020. Obama called people and told them to drop out. Clyburn, you know, basically pushed up Joe Biden in South Carolina. So that helped Biden there. And he kind of took over from there with Super Tuesday, et cetera. In 2016, Bernie Sanders did get a little bit further where it was him and Hillary Clinton. But even then, we watched Bernie Sanders lose states that he won because of the super delegates, them choosing to give like West Virginia to Hillary Clinton and other states that he won to Hillary Clinton. So the problem that I think you run into with that strategy, as we've seen before in the past, is that the DNC is going to decide who they want that nominee to be, regardless if the other candidate won those states or not. So see, I think it was easier for Donald Trump to do that because the GOP doesn't have super delegates. So for him, he could bypass all of that, right? Because let's say this time around, you know, there were a lot of people speaking for the Republican Party early on that said, no, we cannot have Donald Trump again. So that's why they were pushing like Nikki Haley. But obviously the voters decided otherwise. So they don't have that super delegate process. So he was able to do that. The problem I think the Democratic Party runs into is that that's where you hit the wall is the super delegates. They're going to be the ones that decide, well, we don't want this person to be the nominee, so we're just going to give those states to the other establishment candidate. We also saw that with Justice Democrats. Like we tried that with Justice Democrats, and some of those candidates were able to get in. 2 of them are now gone because AIPAC put up money against them. But the other ones that are there, even someone like AOC has learned that she has to play along with Democrat leadership in order to further her career, so to speak. So I think that's the problem that we've run into with trying it that way through the Democratic Party. And so that's why people like me, I just want to pull my hair out because I get it. I get what you're saying, that would be the easier path, but it's like, how do those candidates get past a Nancy Pelosi? How do they get past like a Hakeem Jeffries? Like we see right now, Nancy Pelosi has put her foot down to stop AOC from getting a leadership position on a committee.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are all great points that you raised, and particularly the super delegates being in the Democratic Party where they don't exist in the Republican Party. But I think there also is precedent for a more, he wouldn't want to call himself this now, but I think looking back at 2008, it gives us not a perfect playbook, but combining that with what we know about the campaign Bernie Sanders ran, particularly in 2020, And a picture starts emerging where in 2008, the establishment picked the conventional wisdom that everyone thought was going to get the nomination was Hillary Clinton. And then this upstart senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, because of this electrifying campaign that he runs, steals so much thunder from the Clintons. And he did get a handful of really influential early endorsements, but that was before there was any like real serious contest. And it still looked like if you were a betting person, you would still think Hillary Clinton was going to win. And obviously Obama's not the most anti-establishment figure in how he governed, but if you go back to the rhetoric he used in the 2008 campaign, it very much was. That's what got him elected. The hope, the change, it felt like a whole new era of politics you were entering, and people were excited about it. He won Ohio and Indiana and Florida twice, so it's like the magic was still very much in the air. So I think it shows that it's possible if you run a candidate, and this is where you get into the problem with Bernie. Where it's like, yes, people are admitting late that Bernie was right in the substance of his message, but because of the way politics is configured ideologically in our country, trying to run someone who had described himself as any kind of socialist, it's very hard to explain to the American people the difference between socialist, democratic socialist, Marxist. Like, they don't know the fine distinctions between that. All they know is from the Cold War, communism, socialism, bad. And you saw this in the strategy that Biden and the DNC establishment used to take the nomination from Bernie. It was very important, when Jim Clyburn came in for Biden around the time of the South Carolina primary and the sweep through the South, because they saw in the Black electorate, a group of people who obviously wanted change, but were also deeply skeptical of the radical left. And that was the thing. It was hard for Bernie to bridge, being very appealing. And this is what Obama did perfectly, being both very appealing to progressives and very appealing to more conservative mainstream people who vote Democratic. So that was the typical needle to thread. So it's not that the strategy wasn't good. It's that putting those examples together, we have a path and we constantly need to keep finding openings to run candidates in that way. Just because it doesn't work doesn't necessarily mean we should give up on it. And we already saw it work once. The only sad part is that Obama did not end up being as left populist as he sold himself as being, and we're living with the consequences of that. But I think the strategy is still a good one. Now it really just depends on finding the quote unquote right candidate who can inspire that same degree of enthusiasm, where you can make the degree of victory such that even if they're super delegates, we're still going to get the nomination, or at least give you a hell of a fight in the convention, like the old school political conventions we did in this country, if it comes down to that. So I think that's really what it's going to take.
That's interesting. I think you're correct about the way that Obama ran, the rhetoric that he used. I remember that a lot. And that did excite a lot of people, him talking about hope and change. And I really thought we were going to get hope and change. Like he did. You're right. He didn't say that. It's interesting. He didn't say that he was a socialist, but I do remember people calling him like a communist and a socialist and all that kind of stuff, even though he didn't say that he was. That's really interesting. And I want to get to this healthcare discussion here. So this is, one of the reasons I think a lot of people supported Bernie Sanders was because of Medicare for All. And over the years, I've noticed like people don't talk about it as much as they used to. About 3 years ago, there were marches in this country in over 50 cities for Medicare for All. March for Medicare for All. I was a part of that. And it was interesting to me how even at that point, politicians that were contacted, Cori Bush was the only one who was willing to make an appearance. And she went to the DC march. But when she went there, she made it very clear that they, being the squad, they weren't happy with what we were doing. And I think for me, that was a big wake up, because I was just kind of like, why would you be upset about this? All of you guys ran on Medicare for All. This healthcare is still a big issue. Just because Biden won, that doesn't mean the healthcare issue has gone away. Fast forward to today with Luigi. And now, corporate media, they have no choice but to talk about the healthcare problem that we have in this country because of I think the feedback that they've received from a lot of Americans about how they feel about this situation. And we don't advocate for people to go out and commit violence against anybody on the show. But what has resonated with a lot of people is that the things that he said about United Healthcare in particular, but also applies to other health insurance companies, where they have denied numerous claims and people have lost their loved ones because of it. The Democrat pundits still are not grasping this, except for Chris Murphy of all people, random. But they're not grasping that. They're focusing so much on what Luigi did instead of focusing on the healthcare issue overall in this country, which has caused a lot of people pain and has also caused a lot of people to go into debt. People have filed bankruptcy because they have had healthcare claims like denied, and they've had to pay out of pocket. And I want to get your take about that, because that was something I noticed you mentioned in that video there on MSNBC, which I think Rokana was the one that responded after your video there to that. What do you think it is going to take for the healthcare system to change in this country? How is it that the UK and Denmark and all these other countries can provide healthcare for everybody, but in the US, we have private health insurance, and those health insurance companies donate to other politicians, and so the politicians feel like they belong to their donor class, and that's who they back and that's who they support. Do you think anything is going to change now that this conversation is back in the spotlight again?
I mean, nothing can change as long as the party is dependent on the corporate interests, the very corporate interests that are preventing change from happening. They are the reason why Obamacare was not Medicare for all when it was passed. I mean, even as watered down as Obamacare was, taking a proposal from the Heritage Foundation, and which was partially turned into the Hillary Care plan in the 1990s, taking that decades old plan as a solution to an even more complex modern problem was always very much a middling liberal compromise that didn't really address the problem. And even still, over 40 Democrats in the House voted against that, almost certainly because it would have really messed with the pockets of a lot of people that have a vested interest in how our healthcare system currently operates. So until you change that, you're really not going to change anything. And to your point, that's the reason why they want to focus so much on what Luigi did and not the reaction to it. Because if you focus on the reaction, then of course you're particularly as Democrats, the people that are most visibly tied to the last major healthcare reform. And despite all of the things Obamacare did, it didn't do anything to dissipate the outrage and anger people have at this healthcare system, not only just because there are a lot of people that have had negative experiences with the healthcare system, but I think just also on the level of moral principle. A lot of people are disgusted by a system that exploits sick and dying people at their most desperate and vulnerable hour. That's when they're going to try and scalp them mercilessly, push them into bankruptcy, push them into poverty, financial insecurity in the richest country in the history of the world that claims to be the leader of democracy. I mean, it's horrific, as if you talk about the reality of what our society is versus what it tells us it's about. That's why when they're talking about we have to care, we shouldn't be celebrating murder because life is sacred. It's like everything about how the machinery of this economic and political system functions every day communicates directly and implicitly that human life does not matter. In fact, you can argue successfully that nothing is cheaper in American capitalism than human life. That is the infinite expendable commodity that greases the wheels of the entire system. And now people increasingly on both the right and the left are waking up to that, and they're really upset about that. So of course, you have the establishment, the people who represent the establishment being very concerned about that. One more thing I'll say about Medicare for all, the Democrats are also running on an outdated script of what the electorate wants. And this is something that I wrote about just yesterday. The Daily Beast published a piece I wrote on this, where increasingly the division is not between left and right, but it's between the establishment and everybody else. And the Democrats have to get on that page. And a big part of that is Medicare for all, because going back to Kamala's campaign, the campaign that she ran, she bracketed Medicare for all as, or I shouldn't say her team and her advisors told her not to mention it. They should keep it in the dustbin of radical left ideas that she had in 2020. And they're only finding out now because of Luigi, that was their most popular issue that they were running away from like the plague. It's crazy when you think about it, and just really reveals how out of touch the party is and how disastrous it's been for their prospects and our country's prospects as a viable democracy.
Well said, Jason. Jason, before you go, I am curious about this. What type of law are you studying?
So we don't really have majors in law school. How it typically goes is that we graduate and we all go to work for one of like the big established law firms in like New York, DC. I'll be in LA, doing corporate work, and which is unfortunately what a lot of us have to do. It wouldn't be my first time in corporate America. I was a consultant before I came to law school, so I've already paid some of my dues. But yeah, I'll be doing a lot of corporate law, mergers and acquisitions for about a year or two, and then we'll see what the next thing is. But right now, I'm really focused on in law school. I'm really focused on continuing to talk to people. I'm building out my channel, talking to great people like you, having great conversations, because I think with the time that I have before I start working, before I graduate and have to lock in for the bar exam, it's really important to be, raising the level of consciousness around these issues so that we know how to act. The knowledge is the first step. We all have to get on the same page about the problems, potential solutions, and then move forward. So I'm happy there are people like you that have a platform like this and you're using it in order to be part of the change that you want to see. And I'm very thankful that you decided to have me on tonight.
I would like to see, I would like to see your voice out in the grassroots. Like, I would like to see you out there, organizing, but not trying to tell you what to do. But if I had to like envision, I would like to see you out there, like organizing with people on the ground, outside of the political system. Because we need help in that area as well. I mean, if you look at something like, Gaza, for example, all those like protests and a lot of that organization is happening outside of the political system. But I think that, I would like to see your energy. My biggest fear, Jason, and I saw your video and I was like, my biggest fear is somebody in the Congressional Black Caucus, somebody is going to try to grab you and they're going to try to mold you into being one of the establishment tools. That was my fear.
That's not going to happen. Like I said, I can caucus with the establishment, just about anybody, because I think we're going to have to forge consensus across ideological lines to get to the heart of this problem. But no, a big part of my brand, even if that means, because a lot of people have floated. It wouldn't be the first time other people have floated, political office, and you should get involved to try and change things. But I was always very pessimistic about that, because the way that the system is set up, in order to play the game, you have to capitulate to the very establishment that needs to change. So I agree with you that just like the last major reform movement that we had, being the civil rights movement in this country, it started out as a external protest movement. It was not in government. It was not in the halls of power. It started grassroots, on the ground, people organizing their communities, organizing regionally, organizing nationally, that ended up putting so much pressure on the national political system that it had to cave to essential demands. And frankly, that's been true about every mass social movement that's produced change, lasting change in this country. And it's like, we have to figure out, and I appreciate the encouragement and the inspiration. We all have to figure out, what we can do to make a difference, because that's really what it's going to take at the end of the day.
Okay, I'm gonna have my eye on you, Jason, because they're gonna come for you. I already know.
I'll be waiting.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Bye. All right, guys, that was Jason Chukwuma. He again was a part of, I think you guys may have seen this viral video here. He was on MSNBC, not on purpose. He was on his TikTok channel, and that video made its way on MSNBC. So I can definitely see them trying to get him, man. I can see it already. They're going to come after him. So I said, oh, all right. But, another, young, intelligent person out there, speaking their mind. So welcome, guys. So we have a lot to cover tonight. If you're just joining again, tonight's theme is players want to play. Players, they want to play. And lovers, they want to lay. Haters, they want to, I don't know if I remember all this. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's a 90s song. Players, they want to play. Anywho, let's go ahead and get into the stories tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Quick and foremost, I do want to make sure I give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you, patrons. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. We have ultimate. We have Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about those guys. And of course, the Sabbies. They're pretty cool too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Sabbies. And of course, we also have members as well. They're holding down the fort. Hey, hey, hey. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Green Terminal, not the blue one, not the red one, the Green Terminal, and Krista Brackley. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate you, fam. Hey, hey, hey. Based. Okay. I do want to answer this question really quickly. Shoot balls. I think it's that's what I was looking for. Danny, I think it's 3LW. Isn't it 3LW? Players they want to play. I think it's them. I want to say it's them. But FM says a future Van Jones. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, because I know how they work. I know how like the Congressional Black Caucus works. I know how they will go after Jason. So we got to protect Jason. We got to protect you. Thank you, Skylar. Players, they gonna play. And haters, they gonna hate. Ballers, they gonna ball. Shot callers, they gonna call. That ain't got nothing to do with me and you. That's the way. Okay, I forget that part. But I'm going to pin that one because I'll come back to that later. Thank you so much there, Skylar. Okay, let's go ahead to some of the comments. Greetings, Maggie. 62 said subscribed and liked. Thank you and welcome, Maggie. Shout out to my comrade JB, says hello everyone and welcome to the Thunderdome. Sabs, I'm glad no rich oligarch was there to slap Chris Rock and say, keep my industry name out your fucking mouth. Forehead kisses to all of y'all. Yeah, Chris is having a not good week. Shout out to Tim, says, hey, Sabby, people are saying the drones are holograms. That's why they aren't out in the daytime or when it's raining. What do you think? LOL. Have a great show and free Palestine. I have to look into that story a little bit more. I've seen so many different like videos and I need more time to look at it, but I don't know, man. I think they're making it something that it's not. I'll tell you that much. Shout out to Patrick Hamill for becoming a new member. Give Patrick a big whoop, whoop. Yeah. And shout out to Pitchforks Are Coming for being a member for 24 months and says 2 years, peeps. Hey. Shout out to David, says GOP is more democratic than DNC and no superdelegates empowers that. If you argue party reform, argue no superdelegates. Third party / almost said potty. I've lived here for too long. Third party / indie or bust. Thank you, Janine. Only option for the country is to unapologetically ADOS women with a black husband who has a Bernie message and Trump swag. We are on to Obamish black. Interesting. Thank you so much. Eric, let's keep the Skylar comment pinned, but the other ones you can. Thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what else are we discussing tonight? We're actually going to start off with some good news. So there's an extra story that's not on that thumbnail because I wanted to surprise you guys if you haven't heard about this yet. But here we go. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing Nancy Pelosi blocks AOC. Ooh, girl, no, you didn't. Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, yes, she did. Oh my God. We're going to get into that story and why sometimes trying to play the game doesn't work in your favor. We're also going to discuss Chris Rock roasts U.S. healthcare. Chris Rock has come under enormous scrutiny after his SNL monologue. We're going to talk about that. And combined with that is the recent update about Luigi Mangioni's case. And this is crazy. They have dropped an extra charge on Luigi's case. You guys have got to hear this. And we're to get into like the frustrations with the healthcare system, where Chris Rock may have been coming from with that statement. We're also going to discuss Jesus Christ. This story is absolutely insane. The CNN retract story. You'll see the guy there in the yellow rectangle. If you have not seen his face already, I'm sorry. but you are going to see his face tonight. We're going to talk about, it has now been confirmed that this so-called CNN investigation story that they did in Syria was not accurate. Staged. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump versus ABC News. There is George Stephanopoulos right behind Donald Trump. This is not good news for ABC News. The fact that they have lost this lawsuit, we'll get into that and what the lawsuit actually says. I see some people making assumptions about this, which doesn't have anything to do with the lawsuit. And of course, Jason was just here for Gen Z events. Hey, hey, hey. And we have a bonus story that we're going to get started with right now. We're going to start off with some good news. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been almost 2 years since we have talked about the Uhuru movement. We've talked about Omali Yeshitela has been on the show multiple times to talk about the charges that he and two other Uhuru members are facing or were facing, how the DOJ came after them. And I said, this is definitely a free speech issue, that people should not have to go through this. And we've seen it numerous times where the DOJ has gone after Black organizations, Black socialists, Black radicals, anybody who had any type of visit to Russia that has what they consider to be a radical message, etc. Well, the DOJ already had a case with Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3, and one of the charges was dropped, but the other charge, which was not dropped, which was the thought of conspiracy with Russia. So what they were trying to say is that they didn't accept a payment from Russia, but they may have thought about it. That's how crazy this is, right? Like anybody can say you may have thought something, right? So that was just ridiculous. They were obviously trying to take them down. Well, they just had that hearing. And ladies and gentlemen, I do have good news. I told you that Omali Yeshitela, who's in his 80s, was facing possibly 5 years in prison. I come to you with better news. Not 1 day in prison. Not 1 day in prison. No fine in a Uhuru 3 sentencing victory. This is a big win for not just Omali Yeshitela, not just, all of the Uhuru movement, but this is a big win for free speech. If Omali Yeshitela would have went down for the claim of thinking about doing something, then they can come after any of us for anything. So it was very important that they win this case. I'm so happy that he is not going to face imprisonment. So let's get into this a little bit. As you can see, he is smiling. There's Scott Ritter there next to him, also smiling. I believe, is that Charles Barron? That almost looks like Charles Barron. I have to double check that. But a lot of happiness there down in Tampa. It says, no one's going to prison. No one's going to be fined, stated the U.S. District Court Judge William Jung. That was on Monday, yesterday, December 16th, 2024, in the sentencing of Uhuru 3. Applause, cheers, and tears rose up in the courtroom and hallway that overflowed with supporters from across the political spectrum and around the U.S. Uhuru 3, our African People's Socialist Party chairman, Omali Yeshitela. It's also the chairwoman, Penny Hess, and Uhuru Solidarity Movement chair, Jesse Novell. In September, they were found guilty of acting as unregistered agents. In an unfounded and contradictory verdict, they were found guilty of conspiring to act as Russian agents. They are appealing the conspiracy conviction. Goes on to say here that Judge Jung sentenced them to 3 years probation and 300 hours of community service on the conspiracy conviction. They had to face a maximum, or they were facing a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine each. So they are not facing jail time. They do have probation. So they are facing that. I don't even think they should have that but I'm going to consider this a win, the fact that they have not been sent to jail, because that's a really big one. It goes on to say the judge agreed with the motions filed by their attorneys that the case revolved around their First Amendment right to free speech. He described the contradictory nature of the 951 statute and his concerns about infringement on First Amendment rights. If not for the requirement to register as a foreign agent, everything in the indictment would be legal and protected speech. The sentence was a victory in the hands of Uhuru Fight Back campaign's 2.5-year battle against the bogus U.S. government charges. 83-year-old chairman stated, "The only reason we didn't get prison time is because we fought back against the government attack. We fought. Our lawyers were outstanding. The jury affirmed that we work for Black people, not for Russia." So let's give a kudos, a shout out here for the Uhuru 3, because I got to tell you, folks, I was very scared about this one. I really thought, I said, oh no, because if they go down, you know, we just had this win with the freeing of Julian Assange, him being able to leave. I still don't think that Julian Assange should have had to plead guilty to anything, but there was nothing we could change about that. But Julian Assange being able to leave and go home and be with his family. And then we had to deal with this, you know, another free speech issue. And so I said, please don't let Uhuru 3 go down. Please don't let Omali Yeshitela go down. So they are not serving any jail time, which again, I consider to be a win. A couple of speeches that took place here. I think the first one here is from his granddaughter. Let's go ahead and hear what she had to say. And I also want to show you the remarks from Caleb Maupin and Scott Ritter.
Representative for the African People's Socialist Party, as well as the granddaughter of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I'm happy to report that in the case of the Uhuru 3, that Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chair Jesse Neville, and Chairwoman Penny Hess have not been sentenced to 1 day in prison.
That's right.
In addition, they will not pay a single dollar for a fine. They have also been granted the ability to travel freely. And they have been issued 300 hours of community service, which we already do, as well.
All right. So again, that was, I believe, Omali Yeshitela's granddaughter. And I do want you to hear from Caleb Maupin, who was also there to speak as well. Caleb says, my remarks outside the federal courthouse after hands-off Uhuru's sentencing, speaking on behalf of Real CPI USA. He said, listen to this part. He said, Trump needs to give them a full pardon and the Foreign Agents Registration Act needs to be overturned. Let's get into this here.
On behalf of the Center for Political Innovation, I would like to just give and express our deep admiration for the three defendants and what they put up with, what they struggled, how they endured. I also want to say that the Foreign Agents Registration Act, an absurd piece of legislation, was the basis of this prosecution. And that piece of legislation needs to be overturned. The Foreign Agents Registration Act is a threat to all Americans who advocate peace. It essentially criminalizes being friendly to other countries, and that piece of legislation needs to be overturned. That law is a threat on all Americans who advocate peace. We were honored as the Center for Political Innovation to raise this case at the United Nations, to raise this case at the World Youth Festival in Russia, and we will continue to raise this case. A full pardon needs to be granted to the Uhuru 3. Because Donald Trump saw how that legislation could be weaponized against his own supporters as well. So Donald Trump needs to give a full pardon to the Uhuru 3 when he takes office. Thank you very much.
I agree 100%. Like, they need to be pardoned. Again, this can happen to anyone, you guys. It happened to them, but it can happen to any one of us. That was Caleb Maupin. Yes, they do need to be pardoned, since people going out giving out pardons and shit. People all over the place just handing out pardons. I think they need to be pardoned. And then we also have the remarks here from Scott Ritter. I want to go ahead and bring this up here as well. I swear to God, I really think that's Charles Barron right there.
Speak out. I'm going to spend 2.5 years standing to judgment in front of a court that never loses. Yeah. And so they shut up. And they don't just shut up, they don't listen. If this is going to work, if your movement's going to work, you have to bring people like me into it so that I can listen to you, that we can share things, that we can grow, not as a black nationalist movement, but as an American movement together to try and right the wrongs. But we can't do that if we don't communicate, and we can't communicate if we don't speak, and we're not going to speak if the government thinks that it can charge us, make us spend a whole bunch of money for 2.5 years to what? Get a probation sentence. Is this what the government did? This wasn't about you, Chairman. This is about me. This is about everybody in the city of Tampa, everybody in America, because it can happen across, well, I'll talk about Americans first speech, across the world too. But the point is, what they did here is an assault on every American. I don't know why the people driving, the people at home, you should be here too. This is your fight. They fight your fight, and the fight's not over, Chairman. I'm going to commit myself to working with you, going to St. Louis, and learning about you. Speak out.
Well, see, at least, one thing I'll say is this. You may not agree with Scott on everything. I don't agree with him on everything, but at least he's consistent. This is a free speech issue. You notice he was there. I think he was there last time too. He's there to be by their side, to offer them support. And again, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, they can do it to any one of us, anyone. For the past 2.5 years, it's been Amalia Shatella and the Hoover movement. At one point it was Julian Assange. At another point it was Daniel Hale. Like, it's been Assata Shakur. They can do it to any one of you. So it was really important that they did not go to prison. It was really important that Amalia Shatella and the rest of them can be free. And the moment you think that they won't come for you, they will. Amalia Shatella, and I got to say this, I don't agree with the probation. They shouldn't have probation at all. Amalia Shatella and them did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. Meanwhile, you have other people who are walking around in Congress wearing a damn IDF uniform, but they wanted them to register as foreign agents. Get out of here. So a big win for the Hoover movement, at least I think so. I see a number of people telling me that is Charles Barron. That's what I thought. I thought that was okay. Yeah. So guys, this gentleman, Charles Barron, for those who are not aware, because this is a good, important point. Yeah, Ayoka said it is Charles Barron. That's right. Charles Barron, you know why he's important? Something I'm going to tell you about. So Charles Barron, that some people would consider, a radical or whatever. It's interesting that fighting for basic human rights is considered radical. Charles Barron was running for the seat that Hakeem Jeffries has. Did you know that Charles Barron was actually leading in the polls? He was leading the polls. Next thing you know, Charles Barron gets the smear that, hey, everybody, David Duke just gave an endorsement to Charles Barron. Right. Sound familiar? That also happened to Jill Stein. That's why I told you I think David Duke is a fucking op. So there's that too. Next thing you knew, after that, Hakeem Jeffries shoots up in the polls and he wins. And that's how Hakeem Jeffries has the seat that you see him in right now. So you see what I was telling you about? If they don't want you there, they will make sure that you won't be there. Important for people to note. But they are free. I'm happy about that. No jail time, guys. And again, let's consider this a win for free speech. I think there's a comment there from Roger. I want to go ahead and get that on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Skip, for the tip on Rockfin. Obama was elected to make amends for slavery and Jim Crow. He was elected because of collective guilt. Oligarchs gave him to us. They tried to do Pete and Kamala to do the same. You cannot reform evil from the inside. There you go. Thank you, Roger. Yes, Charles Barron. You know, Amali Sab. That's your in for an interview with Charles through O'Malley. Bam. I do want to talk to Charles Barron. Thank you so much for that. Let's go to some of these other comments here. Thank you for the super sticker, James Starks. And thank you for the super sticker, New York Varsity. We need to leave the foreign agency law to stay intact long enough to get rid of APAC. That's another good point. Yeah. APAC should have to register as a foreign agent. You know what I'm saying? Right. Okay. So good news there. Wanted to start off with that. If you're just joining, don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you, fam. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we are going into our next story. I am doing so great on time. I'm excited. Yeah. We are going to do a call in tonight after the show too. So I'm glad I'm doing good on time. Bam. Okay. Let's get into this next story, ladies and gentlemen. It has been years since I have seen Chris Rock on SNL. It's also been years since I've watched SNL, but I heard that Chris Rock was on SNL and that I needed to watch it. And so I was like, okay, let me go check this out. So Chris Rock, during his SNL monologue, said some things. And in particular, he said some things about United Healthcare CEO, former CEO Brian Thompson, and kind of the healthcare system as a whole. Let's get into it. And I'm going to tell you why this is important, because we do have new updates about what they are charging Luigi Maniotti with now. They have added on a new charge. So let's check this out. There it was, folks, just like that. Chris Rock stuns SNL viewers with pathetic joke about United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, Chris, they were not liking your jizzy joke. They didn't like the jokey joke, man. Okay. What did Chris Rock say? Because we can't play it on here. Sorry, guys, because of copyright. Comedian Chris Rock stunned viewers during his monologue for SNL when he made a crass jokes about the brutal assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Oh God, not crass. This is the joke. He actually killed a family, a man with kids. I have condolences for the healthcare CEO. This is a real person. But sometimes drug dealers get shot. You see The Wire, right? Chris Rock said Saturday night from Studio 8H. So basically Chris Rock was calling him, kind of like a drug dealer, a pusher. And apparently that joke did not sit well with the media. I don't know, did not sit well. He went on to say, I really feel sorry for the family. I mean, everybody's fixated on how good looking this guy looks. If he looked like Jonah Hill, nobody would care. They would have already given him the chair and he'd be dead. Rock added, discussing accused shooter Luigi Mangione. So look at the look on Chris Rock's face, right? The look on his face. Oh my God. The quip swiftly drew backlash from viewers who were shocked by Rock's blunt delivery. So one person said this: I stopped watching after the sick joke about Brian Thompson. After feigning to offer condolences to the family of the murdered man, he made a joke about him being a drug dealer. That's coming from someone on X. So let me highlight this. Let's dive into this part. I guess it's not going to let me highlight. Anyway, I stopped watching after the sick joke about Brian Thompson. So, you've been watching SNL all this time? I don't know. Because SNL for me for years has just not been funny. And I've tried. People are like, so-and-so's going to be on SNL tonight. Watch it. Okay, I'll watch it. Okay, it's not funny. Changing the channel. It's just Yeah. And this brings up the fine line of comedy, right? Because people will say, oh no, that comedian went too far. And I remember, years back, I used to think this too, like, no, they shouldn't joke about that, but also you don't have to be there. I'm also kind of surprised that people are shocked that Chris Rock made a crass joke. It's Chris Rock. Have you never seen Chris Rock stand up? What did you think you were going to be in for? like, come on, get with it, folks. Get with it. So he is receiving a lot of backlash from people about that because he made jokes about Brian Thompson. And was he lying? And that's just kind of how I look at it. Deborah said maybe it was too soon. I don't know. What we say, too soon? It makes you wonder. But I also say this again. We all know, if you've watched Chris Rock's comedy, like the type of comedy that he does. And I've seen his stand up. And so I don't know why people are shocked. So that's just my take on that. And also I feel like the media, corporate media, is exaggerating the outrage a little bit, because they're taking posts from here and there on X and they're like, whoa, total backlash. But I think the initial backlash came from corporate media. And probably also the producers on SNL. Chris probably won't be invited back on SNL if we want to think about it. But that being said, why did Chris feel the need to say what he said? Chris Rock is rich now, but remember, Chris Rock grew up poor. You think he never had to deal with the healthcare system? You think he never had to experience life without health insurance before, or inadequate health insurance? I'm pretty sure he remembers what that was like. And now you'll see, and I want to point this out because look at what they're doing now. This just happened today. Thank you, proud socialists. Luigi Mangione is being charged with first-degree murder and terrorism for allegedly influencing the policies of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion. But it's okay that for-profit insurance companies kill us for profit and bribe our government to prevent changing the system. And that's a really good point there from proud socialists. It's okay that these health insurance companies are able to bribe our politicians, and therefore we don't get, not saying they have to take the money from them, they don't, but therefore that prevents us from getting healthcare for everybody in this country. That's okay. The terrorism charge is very concerning. And I say that because pay very close attention to who they are trying to say is a terrorist now. That word is just kind of thrown all around. And again, the point that I brought up with the Huru 3, it happened to them, but next thing you know, they could come for you. I think terrorism is a far stretch here with this case. And I will say again, I do not advocate anybody to go out and commit violence. Disclaimer, we got to do that. But I think the terrorism charge is a stretch. I think that they're trying to make an example out of Luigi Mangione. I think that what they are trying to do is they're trying to instill fear in everybody else, right? Like if you go after someone that's a CEO, and again, we're not advocating anything like that on the show, but if you were to go after someone that's a CEO, you could also be charged with like terrorism. You know what's interesting though? When poor people are killed, when you see unarmed people, unarmed Black men killed by the police, that's not an act of terror. When policemen in the city of Philadelphia bombed an entire apartment building where residents lived at, that wasn't considered terrorism. Who does terror apply to? That's a question that we need to ask. And the reason why people are so outraged, the reason why, again, people like Chris Rock said what he said is because we all know the healthcare system is fucked up in this country. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. I think you can go to the doctor and you can get a damn health bill and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is all the insurance company is paying. You've had to deal with it in one way, shape, or another, whether it's been you, a family member, or a friend. I think all of us at some point have had to experience this healthcare system and just how cruel it can be, especially if you don't have fancy insurance like, TRICARE, for example, or if you don't have Medicare, or if you don't have insurance, or if you're poor. So people understand. People understand, like those who worked for United Healthcare. If you haven't seen this interview with Jordan Sheraton and the former United Healthcare employee, I highly recommend that you watch this interview. This interview is really good because it takes the mask off. It says exclusive, ex-United Healthcare employee Jenny reveals employees complained about a quota system they were ordered to meet for denying patient claims. You guys need to hear this. They had a quota for you. They had a quota for your life.
I would hear people, on break time or whatever, when we would all kind of come together in this kitchen clutch, and people would be talking about what they were told to do their job. It wasn't my job, so I can't say 100%. Yes, we have to deny so many claims per month to meet our shareholders' expectations, but I do know that people were complaining because, they had to meet a certain amount of claim denials.
So people were telling you that there was a quota for how many denials?
Yep.
Which is kind of like less deadly, but cops towards the end of the month, you have a quota, how many tickets you have to give out.
Right. I wish.
Notice that she said to meet the shareholders' expectations. So even United Healthcare has shareholders. Just like I told you, CNN has shareholders, ABC News, Fox News, MSNBC, ESPN. A lot of these companies have shareholders, and you need to look up Google and find out who the shareholders are. And then you'll find out who these people are actually really working for. BlackRock, Vanguard Group, State Street Group. They're usually in the top 3 of shareholders when you do your research. That's who they're really working for. These are not good companies. BlackRock is not good. Okay. I don't care what they try to tell you. Larry Fink is not good. BlackRock is not good. Vanguard Group is not good. State Street Corporation is not good. These are the top 3, again, shareholders that you will usually see that are invested in these companies. So United Healthcare was denying a certain number of claims to satisfy their shareholders. They had a quota on your life, fam. Think about that for a second. Let's see how many people, they wanted to see how many people could they kill. There's no other way to put it. No other way to put it. Players want to play because that's what they want to do. United Healthcare, they wanted to play. They wanted to play with your life. And that's supposed to be okay? We're just supposed to sit back and accept that in the system? If it's not United Healthcare, if it's not Blue Cross, if it's not TRICARE, then you have to deal with other situations like Medicaid being removed, something that you had no control over. I want you to hear about what happened to children in this country, richest country in the world, being removed from Medicaid. Listen, this happened this year.
Millions of Americans, including children, have lost their health insurance after states started checking for eligibility again following the pandemic. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch reports on how many families are blaming paperwork errors that can take months to fix.
At first glance, Isabella Quintana looks like so many toddlers. But what you can't see are her health challenges.
What's it like to have a 16-month-old daughter with no health insurance coverage and a heart murmur?
A lot of things all the time, and it's hard for us because we're like always thinking when she's going to get sick,
Her father, Gorman, says Isabella should be covered by Medicaid, the government program ensuring low-income and disabled Americans. But over the summer, she lost coverage, even while her brother kept his, due to what her parents believe is a paperwork issue. They say since then, a bronchitis follow-up appointment cost around $1,100 out of pocket, a big chunk of the roughly $35,000 the Colorado family makes a year, which is why another time the family tried to wait out a fever, hoping Isabella got better at home. She's
$1,100 for a visit. $1,100 for a visit. And we have people making $7.25 an hour in this country. In some of the swing states too, by the way, like Pennsylvania. $1,100 for a visit. No, it's not acceptable. No, it's not right. But it's happening, and it's been happening for years.
Far from alone. After the COVID public health emergency, the federal government required states to reevaluate every Medicaid recipient's eligibility. The process, called unwinding, caused more than 25 million people to lose Medicaid coverage.
Why isn't the Democratic Party talking about this? This happened this year under the Biden-Harris administration. Why isn't anybody talking about this? Why aren't all those people, 25 plus million people, lost Medicaid coverage? I told you guys, they kicked people off of Medicaid, just like they kicked people off of SNAP benefits. So first of all, like to qualify for Medicaid, you're already low income anyway. So imagine being low income and you have to pay $1,100 for a visit. That's just for the visit. But everybody sat back and told you everything's fine. Everyone sat back and told you the economy's fine. Everything's going great. You guys just need to message things better. How the hell do you message kicking all these people off of Medicaid? How do you message this? And you just want people to be happy because you reduced the price of some prescriptions. But even those prescriptions, you only reduce the prices for people over a certain age. So when people say that the Democratic Party needed to message more, there was no message to run. What are you talking about? What are you going to say? How often do they talk about this? Nobody talked about this on the campaign trail. Nobody. But here we are.
The majority for procedural reasons. As of August, more than 5 million fewer children were enrolled. And overall, it's not clear how many Americans who lost coverage were actually still eligible.
So in August, you started trying to get it restored.
Yeah.
And here we are in December.
Yeah, and nothing.
The exodus created a paperwork backlog. And while unwinding largely ended in the spring, kids like Isabella appear to still be facing the consequences.
It shouldn't take 4 months for that connect to happen.
No, it shouldn't. And if that happens, there's something wrong. Something has fallen through the cracks.
Kim Bimsteffer oversees Medicaid in Colorado, where unwinding sent safety net enrollment plummeting more than 30%. Over 550,000 people lost health insurance through the state's safety net programs, nearly 150,000 of them children.
Some individuals will fall through the cracks, and we are working really hard and have been working really hard to find them and get them reconnected.
But we cut child poverty in half. We cut child poverty in half. You see how people are leaving out this information? People are purposely misleading you guys because they want you to think that things are better than they are, and they're not. And you need to ask yourself, if people are leaving this information out, why are they not telling you about this? This is a case study QB clip. It's on Twitter. Almost everybody in independent media follows case study at some point, and we use case study clips. So like, why are people not telling you this? Why are they allowing you to think that things are better than they are? Because people who are doing that, they're no better than corporate media. I'm here to tell you. So we have to tell people the truth.
A third of Coloradans who lost Medicaid got their coverage restored. But Bimsteffer says the state's uninsured rate has gone up.
That's a problem.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
people are not finding private health insurance.
Yes, it is an absolute problem. Every American should have health insurance, right?
Bimsteffer says the state created a new way to escalate reviews and is expanding automation to make a dent in the backlog. But change is not coming fast enough. Every Child Pediatrics says the number of its uninsured patients is climbing, and even short gaps in coverage can be devastating, especially for children.
A lot of them are not getting their preventative care, their immunizations. They're falling behind on things like developmental screenings. We could miss an opportunity to intervene early and get kids speech therapy, occupational therapy, what they need to help achieve those milestones. And it really does change their developmental trajectory longer term. So it's a huge deal.
A huge deal for kids like Isabella, whose futures hang in the balance.
It's tough because you want them to be healthy right away, you know? You don't want to wait until something else happens.
Jesse Kirsch, NBC News, Denver.
Look at that little girl. This little girl. What did she do wrong? Nothing. She's a kid. She's a kid that lives in the wealthiest country in the world. There's so much greed and corruption, and people want to tell you, and this is my thing, people want to tell you, you have to have the children, but then they don't want the children to be taken care of. What is this? People need health care. People need it in this country. People need it all over the world. Meanwhile, on CNN, you have hosts like Michael Smirkonish, what is his name? Smirkonish? Michael Smirkonish, who is out here trying to make it seem like, Brian Thompson is like some next great revolutionary. I can't make this up. Listen to this. This is crazy.
I slowed my gait as I passed a side entrance to the Hilton Hotel, realizing that this was the same day, in the same early morning hour, in the precise location where 1 week prior, a 50-year-old father of two was assassinated. But something was missing. Any sign whatsoever of the tragedy that occurred right here, and which...
Oh, I think we have to miss this part. Hold on 1 second. We'll let him get past that part. Okay, there we go. We'll bring it back in.
Seeing the crime scene that's been shown many times in the media. There it is. But a week later, here's what was left. A lone piece of NYPD crime tape affixed to a barrier. No memorial of the kind that often appears spontaneously after a similar tragedy. Like when John Lennon was murdered in New York City in 1980. Or when 32-year-old Heather Heyer was run down in Charlottesville, Virginia. George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis.
So for some strange, bizarre reason, Smirkonish thought that it was a good idea to compare Brian Thompson to John Lennon, George Floyd, and the young woman that was killed in Charlottesville. I'll pause. Do you see what he's doing? Do you see what the media is doing? They're trying to, because they know the backlash that's coming towards the CEOs and the healthcare system. So they're trying to pump up Brian Thompson and put him on the same level as John Lennon, George Floyd, and the young woman that was killed in Charlottesville. How is this on the same level? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And this is no shade to Brian's family. Brian's family has no control over, this or what happened, etc. But I don't think we should be putting Brian Thompson on the same level. People love John Lennon. Are you kidding me? People love John Lennon. People love the Beatles. They loved him. Stop. John Lennon wanted peace. You think John Lennon would have been okay with what's happening? You think John Lennon would be like, yeah, well, people should just have to pay for healthcare? No. Stop. It's a mess. George Floyd was killed by a police officer who had his knee on his neck. What are you doing? Meanwhile, Brian Thompson was the CEO of a healthcare company that was notoriously known for denying claims, that had quotas on people's lives. Why are you doing this? Anything to get you to feel bad. They really trying to move people over to Brian Thompson's side. You can see it in his eyes. Look at Smirkonish's eyes. Look at his eyes. You can see it. They're really trying to get you and bring you over.
The spot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber were shot and killed by Kyle Rittenhouse. Crowds grieve the loss of Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer who was fatally shot on the set of the film Rust. The University of Georgia held a vigil for Laken Riley, a nursing student who was killed by a migrant near campus. And when Donald Trump returned to the site of his first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, supporters appropriately honored Corey Comparatore's life and service by placing his firefighter's uniform in the stands. But there was no sign of any makeshift memorial on 54th Street.
Why would there be? Why would there be a sign? Why would there be a memorial for Brian Thompson? You want a memorial? Michael, you want one? You go make one, Kay. You go make one yourself. Why would there be? Are you kidding me? After everything that you guys have heard about this company, how they denied people healthcare over and over, Michael wants you to go out and have a memorial for Brian Thompson. This guy who sat up there, Brian Thompson, again, don't forget, he was under investigation and he was trying to move the needle to move forward towards AI to deny even more claims. And that's who Michael wants you to go out and make a visual for? What? No wonder their ratings are so low. No wonder people don't want to watch you.
Instead, a poster was taped outside the Hilton Hotel depicting the suspect as a saint with the words, "Free Luigi," a reference to the 26-year-old charged with second-degree murder.
They're saying free Luigi because, again, everybody gets it, Michael. Everybody gets it except for people like you, because you're sitting up in your studio and you're like you're another millionaire. You guys have great health insurance. You don't care about it. You don't want to hear about it. Terrible segment. I couldn't believe they even had the nerve. He was really trying to tug at the heartstrings, right? Let's make the comparison to George Floyd and John Lennon. It's a mess, ladies and gentlemen. It's a mess. But when you see and you understand, again, number one, I'm very concerned about the censorship. But number two, when you see and you understand why Chris Rock said what he did, Chris Rock was basically, again, comparing him to a drug pusher. And there are several people who saw this and said he was correct. I've watched numerous commentators day after day who have a lot of sympathy for Brian Thompson, who had no damn sympathy for any of the Palestinians that have been killed that they've talked about over and over. No sympathy whatsoever. You're talking about a genocide of a group of people, and they had no sympathy and sat there and advocated for the people who were killing them. But they want you to have sympathy for Brian Thompson. I am very much concerned about the terrorism charge that they threw at Luigi now too, because I feel like it's an intimidation tactic. I do feel like they're trying to scare other people, you know, and tell them think twice before you even consider anything. And again, you should not do that. But I really do think that's what this is really about. Crazy stuff, guys. Crazy, crazy stuff. Go ahead and smash that like button, guys. Thank you. And I think we're going to go to some of the comments. Yeah, let's do that. Shout out to Maggie for becoming a new member. Give Maggie a big whoop, whoop. Maggie almost looks like it's reggae, almost like reggae. Thank you, New York Varsity. If they were taken aback by Chris Rock, Chappelle would have given them a literal heart attack. I know, right? I started watching Chappelle's show again a couple nights ago. It was really funny. We're going back to watch the old skits. I had to watch the Prince one again when him and Prince were playing basketball. Thank you for this one as well. Oh, yeah. And by the way, having a laugh behind the scenes because no one is talking about them is Big Pharma. They set the prices. This is the root. That's a good point. Thank you, David. It's a war of words to further control the populace. Israeli murderers are called commandos. Arab commandos are called terrorists. George Carlin. Thank you so much for the super sticker, pretty ugly things. And thank you, Where is the Love? My father's chemo treatments were valued at $16,000 per treatment. Insurance covered it, but damn, $16,000 per treatment. Exactly. How much does it cost to make chemo? How much does it cost to make a lot of these meds that they charge you an enormous amount for? And thank you, Louise. Marie Antoinette wanted to give you all cake. Why can't you see the tragedy? I just can't. And thank you. Megay says, yes, I love, love, love. Thank you so much. All right. This next story is a doozy. Oh boy, hold on to this one. Talk about news. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This year, I guess corporate media is not really taking a break. In particular, CNN, they have been hit with a number of things. So is MSNBC. We've talked about the decline in ratings. But now, ladies and gentlemen, ABC News is in the spotlight. Believe it or not, I couldn't believe this story when it first came across my phone. I was like, there's no way this is real. No way. Okay. But apparently it was. Did you hear this? ABC News has been ordered to pay $15 million in a lawsuit against Donald Trump. Donald Trump sued ABC News for defamation, and apparently he won. Not only did he win, but he won big. $15 million. I had to double check the dollar amount because I was like, maybe it's 15,000 and I just misread, maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me. I don't know. But they wanted to play this game. ABC News, they wanted to play this game. They want to try to throw in these smears there and there. And they said it was a slip of the tongue, but I don't think something's a slip of the tongue if you say it over and over and over again. I think it was deliberate. And now they're having to pay up. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. Ladies and gentlemen, ABC News, $15 million.
Breaking news into CNN, ABC News anchor George Stephanopoulos has reached a settlement with President-elect Donald Trump in his defamation suit. The lawsuit stemming from an interview that Stephanopoulos did with Congresswoman Nancy Mace, where he asserted Trump was found liable for rape in a civil case. The network will pay out $16 million as part of that settlement and have to issue an apology. CNN chief media analyst Brian Stelter joining me. And Brian, this is actually a lawsuit with ABC News, the network, and Stephanopoulos. What else can you tell us about this?
That's right. It's not every day that you hear about a major network, a TV network, paying millions of dollars and apologizing to the president-elect. So this is a headline with real ramifications. And as you said, it stems from an episode of George Stephanopoulos' Sunday morning news program, where he was talking with a lawmaker, I think it was Nancy Mace, and they were talking about the E. Jean Carroll case. And George Stephanopoulos repeatedly used the word rape, saying Trump was found guilty of rape.
Pause. So did you hear what Brian just said? Brian just told you he repeatedly used the word. So if you repeatedly say it, is it still considered a slip of the tongue? Which I didn't think it was a slip of the tongue either way. I think that they wanted really to punish like Donald Trump. Now, whether or not you believe Donald Trump is innocent or guilty in all of this, that's not what the lawsuit itself is about. It's about the vocabulary that was used. The fact that the word, we're going to say grape, how YouTube is, the fact that the word, grape was used instead of sexual assault. And some of you may be wondering, well, is there a difference between the two? There actually is. And I'll explain that to you in a second. But it was the word that was used that was considered to be problematic. I mean, maybe this will push ABC News to be a little bit more careful. I don't know. $15 million is a lot of money. I mean, that's not chump change. Granted, these networks have a lot of money, but still, that is a lot of money.
Of rape. Well, in fact, the accurate phrase to use is sexual abuse. That is what the New York court found. But because Stephanopoulos kept using that R word, rape, Trump filed a lawsuit. He filed a defamation suit. We've talked a lot in recent years about people using the courts trying to seek justice. Remember the Sandy Hook case against Alex Jones? Well, those defamation kinds of cases can also be filed by someone like the president-elect. So Trump filed a defamation suit. It was working its way through the courts. ABC was unable to get it thrown out initially. And actually, in the next few days, Trump was set to be deposed in the case. But ABC is avoiding going any further by settling. They're paying out $15 million plus $1 million in attorney's fees. They say this is going to go to a nonprofit, basically to Trump's future library. That's the idea. But maybe most importantly, Jessica, ABC is also apologizing, issuing a statement of regret. I'm just looking at my computer to get the exact wording here.
While he looks for the exact wording, I want to tell you something else that was interesting about this. The money is going to his library, a Donald Trump like library. So it's going towards a nonprofit. It's not even going in his pocket. So that's the other thing. People are like, oh, like he needs more money. It's not going to him. It's going to a nonprofit. And it's one of those things, again, like ABC decided to settle. So obviously they feel like, okay, we might not be able to win this. Let's just go ahead and settle it out and just do the damn thing. But what this also shows you is that once again, corporate media is getting another swift kick in the butt. And it also shows you that people can't trust corporate media. And look, no one's going to get it right all the time. I don't get everything right, but when I get it wrong, I will come back and make a correction. If I realize, oh, wait a minute, I messed something up, let me come back and say this. But what I've noticed a lot of times with corporate media is that they're not willing to do that because most of the time it's not considered to be a mistake by them. They are trying to present a certain narrative to convince the viewers and to get their point across to them. But now with this particular lawsuit and the fact that they had to settle, I wonder if this is going to make more corporate media networks try to be a little bit more careful about the rhetoric or the vocabulary that they use when describing, certain, I guess, legal situations, because that's what this was about.
But ABC is going to say, basically attach an editor's note to the website saying it regrets, and George regrets the statements. Meanwhile, an ABC spokesperson tells me they are pleased to have reached this settlement, but it is very notable. They are both paying out money to the president-elect and apologizing for the misstatements on the air.
Certainly. And what else, Brian, does this tell us about the president-elect's possible strategy for dealing with the media going forward? We know he's very litigious.
One word comes to mind, the word emboldened. Trump and his team is going to be emboldened by this settlement by ABC, because rather than fight this out any further, rather than trying to go to trial, ABC is choosing to settle. What does that mean? Maybe that means ABC had embarrassing emails or text messages or other material that was going to make the network look bad. Remember, that's one of the reasons why Fox News settled against Dominion last year. Sometimes networks settle because they don't want to drag it out any further and get embarrassed in the court of public opinion. But regardless of ABC's rationale, and they won't say why exactly they decided to reach this settlement, it will embolden Trump and his allies, who, as you've said, have shown they want to use the courts in order to achieve certain outcomes they want. In this case, they believe justice is being done by holding ABC accountable. Others would say this is a form of lawfare where you're using the courts to tie up news outlets and embarrass them and cost them, in this case, millions of dollars. I'm really struck, Jessica, by the dollar figure, by the way, $16 million. That's a lot of money for any news outlet to be paying out. And that's going to have, I think, far-reaching ramifications.
I don't even think I've ever heard of a news outlet paying that much money. I can double check, but I don't even remember, even with the Fox News case, I don't remember them paying $15 million. So, oh boy.
CNN's Hadas Gold is here with us now to talk more about this settlement. What more are you learning, Hadas?
Well, Jessica, it's a significant concession for ABC and a victory for President-elect Trump, because he's actually had not many victories when it's come to litigation with the media. And so this is sort of a rare victory for him. Now, of those $16 million, $1 million is going to legal fees, and $15 million of that ABC won't actually be paying directly into Donald Trump's bank account, but they say it's going to go into something for a potential future presidential library of some kind for President Trump. So as you noted, what happened was this was an interview back in March with Congresswoman Nancy Mace, and George Stephanopoulos in that interview said 10 times that that a jury had found Trump had raped that writer E. Jean Carroll. Now, while the jury did find Trump liable for sexual abuse, he was not found liable for rape. A judge did say later that the claim that Trump raped Carroll was substantially true in the broader sense of the word, but not as defined by New York law. Now, Trump has denied all wrongdoing and is appealing that verdict. But now, because of this settlement between ABC News and Donald Trump, ABC is going to issue a statement stating their regret in the online article that showed this interview. And they also put out a statement saying that they are pleased that the parties have reached an agreement to dismiss the lawsuit on the terms in the court filing. Now, what's interesting is the timing of all this, because both President-elect Trump and George Stephanopoulos were supposed to sit for depositions related to this coming week. A judge had ruled that they needed to sit for deposition. So it's an interesting timing for this. As for why exactly ABC News chose to settle, because some experts in media law said that ABC News actually had a good chance when it came to this because of the high bar set for defamation in these sorts of cases, especially with a public figure. It is an uncomfortable situation, I imagine, to be a news organization having such a legal fight with the president-elect as he comes in for his second term.
So that's really interesting. Notice that she said that he used the word 10 times. So at that point, I would say it's not a slip of the tongue. If you use it 10 times, you meant what you said. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, and we'll get to the next clip about this as well. People not playing around. People not playing around. We already saw that Jay-Z went after Piers Morgan, sent his lawyer after Piers Morgan and said, Jaguar Wright says some things on your show about me that are incorrect and are false, and we want you to issue a statement of correction. And he did, and they removed the interview with Jaguar Wright. They removed that, at least that portion of that interview. People are not playing around. People are dishing out lawsuits. Because it's one thing that it can affect your character, et cetera. You know, whether you believe Trump is innocent or guilty or not. One of the things I will say is that I have seen a number of people saying, see, this proves that he's innocent. He didn't do anything. No, that's not what the lawsuit proves. The lawsuit was about the word that was used. And the word that George Stephanopoulos used was, of course, the R word. That was not what was found in the civil case. They're saying it was sexual abuse that was found in that case. So those are two different things. And I think people may not really understand that at that point in time, thinking that that's the same thing. Sometimes people use those words interchangeably, but it's really not the same thing. I looked up the definition of all three just to double check myself, right? So that does not mean that he did not do anything. And I think some people heard this news and they said, see, he didn't do anything. You don't know that. We don't know. The thing about these particular cases, whether it is sexual assault, sexual abuse, or grape, you know, it is very hard to have evidence. And sometimes people have been able to have evidence, but most of the time there isn't evidence that can be brought forward in court. So the jury basically has to decide, who do I feel is telling the truth? Is the witness, you know, credible? Is the person that filed the claim, does their story appear to be credible? And that's the thing with these particular cases, is that most of the time there isn't evidence. I want you to go into this clip here too, also on News Nation, as they talk to another individual about this as well. Listen to this.
Alex, will this have a chilling effect on the media, or is this denial that Stephanopoulos messed up in his language on his program?
Well, clearly Stephanopoulos messed up because he mischaracterized the verdict by saying that Trump was found liable for rape when, in fact, he was found liable for sexual assault. Big difference. And it was something that the judge in the case, Lewis Kaplan, clarified, that he pointed out explicitly that the New York Penal Code's definition of rape was far narrower than what Trump was found liable for. So certainly it was a mistake by Stephanopoulos. Now, does it rise to the level of a $15 million penalty? That's pretty steep. But I think what it does show is that media organizations aren't as confident as they were a decade ago. Even though the First Amendment is still there, public's perception of the media and journalists has gone down. Also, they don't really have the financial resources that they did a decade ago. It's a less financially stable industry than it was a decade ago. Clearly, less interested in waging a protracted legal battle with a very wealthy opponent. I think the other thing weighing on ABC's mind is that Dominion Voting Systems settlement against Fox News, $787 million. Yeah. You know, Fox decided to fight that out with Dominion over claims related to the 2020 election. Through the discovery process, a lot of embarrassing information, text messages came out. I think it's clear that ABC, while it may have had a pretty strong case in court to beat the lawsuit, Trump's lawsuit, they didn't want to go through the protracted battle that could have opened up a can of worms.
And there's also,
and I understand that. I understand where he's saying that, like, they may have had a strong case, but they didn't want to go through all that. Okay, I understand that. But $15 million is a lot of money. It's not chump change. I mean, that almost sounds insane that they're willing to pay that. And it also makes me wonder, like, what's going to happen to George Stephanopoulos? I bet you he'll still probably keep his job. You know, most companies, if you cost them $15 million, you probably wouldn't be working there anymore. Wink, wink. Let's continue on here.
Also CBS too, right? I mean, President-elect Trump is still suing CBS News for $10 billion for alleged dishonest reporting in its handling of Vice President Harris's 60-minute interview when we saw different clips being played. CBS says the interview was edited for timing. How do you see this settlement here with ABC affecting not just that case, but the media's overall coverage of President-elect Trump moving forward?
Well, my view is the suit against CBS isn't as strong because in journalism you have to make decisions about what's newsworthy, what's not newsworthy, what's worth the viewer's time and attention. So that's, I think, basic editorial decision making. Also, it doesn't impugn Trump in the same way that Stephanopoulos did by saying that he was found liable for rape. I mean, that's about as ugly a charge as there can be. So I think that Trump may have found more sympathy with the jury in terms of, providing a misleading interview about Kamala Harris based on editing decisions. That seems more of a coin flip. I'd be surprised if CBS settles, but given Trump's deep pockets, given that corporate ownership wants to stay on the Trump administration's good side, who knows?
Yeah.
I just want to pause here. And so what do you hear? You hear that he's also going after CBS. Listen, let me tell you, don't be playing with these people. Do not be playing. I'm going to tell you right now, Donald Trump is not playing around. Do not play with these. They will come after you. You better get your story straight. Get your story straight. Jesus Christ. Ashura just said, let me go ahead and pull this up as well. Fox paid $650 million to Dominion, Sabby. Jesus Christ. That's a lot of money. That's a lot. And then stop and think about it. How in the hell do these networks have that much money? So that tells you just how much money they've been able to accumulate over the years. That's insane. That's insane.
I'm going to ask you too, do you think there would have been a settlement with ABC here if Trump had just lost? Is this needing four more years of good favor, and is this kissing the ring?
That's a great question. I don't think there would have been a settlement had Kamala Harris won the White House. And I think you can't forget ABC News is owned by Walt Disney Company. That's a major company that, of course, is going to have business before the new Trump administration. The Trump administration will control or have influence over all elements of FCC law and regulation. And then the other thing here is that, look, ABC needs to be able to cover the president-elect. And if they have such a bad relationship, it makes that job more difficult. So
thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to.
All right. And so I did see this comment as well that George Stephanopoulos may have deleted his Twitter account. That would not surprise me. I just looked up on Twitter. I don't see him on there. I don't know. So maybe George may have had to bow out. Okay. Maybe George may have had to bow out, but that is not a good look. And we've talked about this before about these media companies. Like I said, some of these people are not playing around. Some people are going to come after you if you tell lies about them. So like I said, the players, they want to play, but sometimes if you don't win the game, maybe you need to stop playing. The question I have for all of you, though, do you think that this is going to put more pressure on corporate media to be more careful when they're discussing legal cases? I don't know, but it's something to think about there. And then this is something else that I wanted to mention just about the definition, and I'll bring this up here as well. There's a difference between rape and sexual assault. And just briefly so that people understand, because again, a lot of times the terms are used interchangeably. So of course it says, I don't know why this thing is here. Get out of my way. Come back this way. Rape is the commission of non-consensual sexual intercourse against an individual by way of physical force or the use of threats or drugs. Sexual assault is defined as causing another individual to be subjected to sexual contact without consent. So I know sometimes, again, like I said, they're used interchangeably, but they do have different definitions. Crazy times, ladies and gentlemen, crazy times. And I know I'd said 2024 was going to be wild. 2025 is going to be live. All right. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the super chat, Dwayne. Snuffleupagus has a bad case of Trump derangement syndrome. You call him Snuffleupagus? Oh boy. Denise, Sabby, you need to play the CNN clip where E. Jean Carroll said she wasn't great. I was trying to find that and I couldn't find it. Because I saw your comment earlier and I pinned it over here for myself, but I couldn't find it. The Oracle says they should have published a retraction and corrected the reference term. Yeah, and they probably wouldn't be in this situation, right? Thank you, Troy. Garbage people sowing divide in my country. Thank you, GB. Fox News actually paid Dominion $787 million over the rigged election claim. Interesting. Man. To think about having all that money, that's crazy. Christine said he was found guilty of SA, just not grape. There you go. Pretty ugly things. What happened to Biden and Tara Reade? Tara Reade never went to trial. She was trying to make that happen when Matt Gaetz was still in office. I think he was trying to help her with that. And then she went to Russia to get her book translated to different languages. And then she was told not to come back to the US because she would be detained. So they were in the works of trying to get Tara Reade to testify in front of Congress. And then all that kind of just went out the window. So yeah, you're right. Good point. What happened? Tara Reade never had a trial. Like there was never, thank you, Danielle. Luigi fam should sue for defamation for being called a terrorist. I wonder if his family is, if they've spoken to him. I didn't know. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the family dynamic post his arrest. So I don't even know if they're talking to him or not. So there's that. All righty. Quick announcement, guys. I do want to say thank you guys so much for all of you that contributed to the mutual aid event. We just had it this Sunday. I'll show you a little bit of it. I'm going to create a video of this because we have video footage. We're going to put it all together and make it as one big video. But I did want to show you how it started out. This is when we were decorating.
We're here, guys. Outside the Bruce Bowling building. I wore my corporate media lies t-shirt. I don't know if you guys can see it. Actually, sweatshirt. So sending a message as well. It's cute. Charlie, you made this?
Yeah, I painted it yesterday.
Oh, so cute.
So one of the things that Kate did is we got these are like breakfast baskets for the families. So they have pancake mix, syrup, marshmallows, the juices for the kids. So that's one of the things that they get. Plus we have the holiday treat bags. And then what we did with the gifts, I don't want to show people's names on here. What we did with the gifts is we put their email and all these bags. Every one of these bags have a number. And we have a clipboard with the number so that we can connect it to the family that had the request. So that was the easiest way to do it, so there's no confusion and nobody gets anything mixed up. Okay, and so we're still setting up decorations right now. Oh yeah, you guys see the solo cups behind me? Yeah, solo cups do come in different colors, by the way. It's not just red. So we're setting up decorations over here. And then another thing that's kind of cool was I don't know if you guys, well, no, you didn't see this. At the tables, we have the centerpiece, and then we have these cards for each seat. So it says Boston Mutual Aid Chapter, and then we have my website because we don't have a website for the mutual aid yet, but that information is on my website. So helping communities through mutual aid, media and activism there. So every seat will have that so they can take that with them. So we don't, they'll know how to get in contact with us. And then you can see here. So we're just decorating right now. That's what's happening, man. Yeah, so I'll create a full video of everything so you can see all of that. I think I put 2 pictures also on the channel page as well, so you can see how it went. It was a good time. And this is one of the things that I do heavily like promote. And I told you guys, come 2025, I'm going to start doing mutual aid virtual workshops so I can teach you how to do mutual aid groups where you are as well. Because there's definitely a need for that. And one of the things that I've noticed with mutual aid, shout out to the Black Panthers, because this is where we got it from, is that I see it help people directly. And when it comes to politics, like, there's no direct help. It's like you're voting for a politician to go into Congress or to go into the White House and hopefully pass legislation or approve legislation to possibly get something done that's usually going to be watered down from what you asked for in the first damn place. Corporations are going to get their cut, right? Wall Street gets their cut. And by the time anything gets to you, it's usually crumbs. And so what I always tell people is that organizing, activism, volunteering, I think that's something that is not only good for the people that you're helping, but I think it's also good for you. Like it makes me feel good, like when I do help people. And so I never want you to watch this show and to think that it's politics or nothing, because that's not the case. There are a number of people that are organizers that are helping people, every week. There are people that feed people in Boston like every week. And this is uplifting for them, and they help a lot of people. These are things that some of our politicians should get involved in, but most of the time they're nowhere to be found. So that's why when I say that we need each other, this is what I'm talking about. When I say that it's all about building community, it's about organizing and starting where you are first. This is what I'm talking about. Because one of the things that I did learn from the Black Panthers is that they realized a long time ago that the US government wasn't going to help them. So they decided to help each other. And they started the free breakfast program. They started they built clinics on their own. They were not hoping that the government would do the right thing. So they said, how can we help our people? And I think we need more of that. So 2025, I will be doing mutual aid workshops. I'll announce them here on the show, of course, and I'll have a sign up list for everybody that wants to be a part of that, because that's something that I think we need to spread. All right. Hey. Are we moving on to the next one? Okay, moving on to this one. Oh my God, this one's good. All right, guys, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you very much. We're moving on to our next story here. More about media. Yikes. Ladies and gentlemen, CNN has been busted. It appears that CNN Investigates reported a story in Syria that I think from the get-go, many of us who saw the clips were like, there's no way in hell this is real. We know that this is staged. It looks so damn fake. Now, the journalist that was reporting that story, her name is Clarissa Ward, and this isn't the first time where she's been called out to her face. I want to take you back to October, where she was called out to her face about the genocide. Remember this woman? Do you remember her? She is yelling at Clarissa Ward.
This is our problem. You own the narrative. You own the United Nations. You own Hollywood. You own all these mouthpieces. Where are our voices? Our voices need to be heard as well. We've been watching your channels, and instead of mourning our dead, instead of mourning these Palestinian children, we've been having to deal with more dehumanization of Arabs. We ask you to condemn. Where are your condemnation? Where's your channel covering this? Cover this. Say the truth. We understand you're an employee. You're just a puppet. You're just a mouthpiece. I understand you have your foreign policy. No, I've heard you. I understand you represent your government. But that being said, you're a country that's claimed free speech. And now we are watching an occupation, and we are watching the result of your silence, of your misrepresentation of Arabs.
That was Clarissa Ward being told off to her face about her horrible commentary on CNN. Again, she's a part of CNN Investigates, and they were letting her have it there. And now she is having it again. Because, ladies and gentlemen, give a shout out to Mint Press News and, of course, Wyatt Reed from the Gray Zone for busting open the can on this one. Players want to play, but sometimes they get caught. Mint Press News says, let's peep this out here. CNN journalist Clarissa Ward accused of fabricating scene of prisoner rescue in Syria. And this was the first, depiction of it here. And then later on, you will see that there has now been confirmation about this as well. And I tell you, when I saw that video, I said, there is no way that this is not staged. I'm like, come on now. Reality TV does a better job of convincing us it's real than this. Come on, man. Come on. So we can go on to see here, because it's hilarious. I just want to take you back to this epic clip where it said, Syria is free. Syria is free. CNN says, extraordinary moment as Clarissa Ward and her team witness a Syrian prisoner freed from a secret prison in Damascus. Dun, dun, dun.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky. My God, the light, he says. Oh God, there is light. My God, there is light.
Oh God, there is light. Go back to the beginning. Now, he has been in this cell for 3 months, right? It's dark in that cell, okay? Listen to this again.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky. So here's how I knew they were full of BS, right? If you were in a cell for 3 months with no window, nothing but darkness, when you were first pulled out of the cell, looking up at the sky is probably not going to be the first thing you're able to do, because the light is probably going to hurt your eyes. So that was a big giveaway to me. Big giveaway. Another thing I noticed. You've been in this cell all this time. Now, this particular institution that they're talking about here, they said that the prisoners were tortured, that they were starving them. Does he look like he been starving? Does he look like he... Watch this.
My God, the light, he says. Oh God, there is light. My God, there is light. Okay.
Keep the jacket, fam. Now, this was another thing that I noticed. Now, he been in that cell for 3 months. And Clarissa Ward comes along and is like, we're taking him out of the cell. Look at this. We're taking him out. It's his first time out. He finally gets to see light. There's no soot on that jacket. How is the jacket spick and span clean, man? How is the jacket so damn clean, man? Come on. Come on. Aunt Shawnee said the light would hurt your eyes. Thank you, Aunt Shawnee. Thank you. Come on, man. Get out of here.
Stay with me. Stay with me. He repeats again and again.
Now, he been in there for 3 months. Now I'm looking at the hairline, because the beard looked kind of shaped up to me. I don't know. Dudes in the chat, let me know. Let me know, dudes in the chats. JB said the jacket looks steamed and pressed. Hello? There's not 1 ounce of dirt or dust on that damn jacket. But I'm looking at the facial hair, fam, because the facial hair looked kind of lined up. I don't know, because I'm imagining to myself, they said he'd been there the whole time. From what I heard about this institution, they were saying that, like, oh, well, the people there, they're tortured. They can't eat anything. They're starving them, da-da-da. I doubt they allow them to go get a shave. How is it that's as far as the beard has gone in 3 months? Dude in the chat, dudes that are watching, if you go 3 months without shaving, let me know what it would look like, okay? Let me know. Let me know.
For 3 months, I didn't know anything about my family. I didn't hear anything about my children. The fighter hands him something to eat. He barely lifted to his mouth. But his body can't handle it. Okay, you're okay. His captors fled during the fall of Damascus, leaving him with no food or water. That was at least 4 days ago. I'm shaking. My face is shaking, he says. The rebel tells him there's no more.
Let's go back to the no food and water part. I'm sorry, I have to hear this part.
The fall of Damascus, leaving him with no food or water. That was at least 4 days ago.
No food or water 4 days ago. Come on, guys. Come on, because we've seen pictures and video of people in Gaza that hadn't had food or water for days. This guy does not look like that at all. Jeez Louise.
I'm shaking. My face is shaking, he says. The rebel tells him there's no more army, no more prisons, no more checkpoints. Are you serious, he says? Syria harra. Syria is free, he tells him. It's the first time he has heard those words.
So, very obvious to most of us that saw it. Very obvious to most of us that saw it. She went on here because there was more to this. Jesus Christ. This was just crazy. The Aussie Oracle said CNN is now the Caliphate News Network. Who believes this crisis actress? Look at this. She's going all in, guys.
Clarissa is on the ground right now. Clarissa, tell us what's happening.
Stand by.
Hi, John. So forgive me, I have a slightly unelegant position, but we have just had a massive barrage of rockets coming in here, not too far from us. So we have had to take shelter here by the roadside. We're just about 5 minutes away. Gaza is in that direction. We can.
They had a massive influx of rockets come that way. Hear it again. Let's make sure we're hearing this right.
Hi, John. So forgive me, I have a slightly unelegant position, but we have just had a massive barrage of rockets coming in here, not too far from us. So we have.
Not too far from us. Does anybody see any smoke? Do you see any dust? Anything? Any smoke? Nothing? Any of this, guys? No, nothing? Do you hear anything? Where's the noise? Where's the smoke? Okay. Jesus.
Had to take shelter here by the roadside. We're just about 5 minutes away. Gaza is in that direction. We can hear now a lot of jets in the sky. We could also hear the Iron Dome intercepting a number of those rockets as they were whizzing overhead and making impact in that direction, not too far from here. We came to this location because this was ground zero for this entire operation of carnage. Hamas militants came on a pickup truck. This was the first place where they breached that border wall, and they basically drove down this strip, just spraying lead wherever they went. We saw, in fact, I was just grabbing it before that happened and we had to hit the deck, but heavy weaponry being used. It's saying we can get up now.
You could have gotten up the whole time. We can all play this game, guys. We can play this game.
Where are we moving to? Sorry, just 1 second, guys. Okay.
Let's come up and go this way and then.
All right, so now I can show you the scene here. This is where those militants first came, opening up fire on all these vehicles. There's a baby carriage down there.
Where's the smoke from the rockets? Where's the smoke? Come on. Michael Bay can do better than that. You didn't learn anything from Michael Bay. Come on. Come on. Oh my gosh.
Turned over on its side. You can see over there, Clayton, if you just show in the distance there, some kind of strikes, looks like in Gaza as well. Return fire. Or is that the smoke from the rocket launches? Forgive me.
She don't know. She don't know.
It's a little difficult after being crouched in a ditch to know exactly what's been going on.
Yeah, because you're just making up stuff. She's just saying whatever to know exactly what's been going on. Come on, man. No way. We can all play this game, Clarissa. We can all play this game. Come on. You guys can play it with me. Can play it with me. Oh my God. I know that the weathermen are the interesting ones during a hurricane. John, they're telling me the storm is picking up speed, John. They're telling me the wind's coming in. John, I'm holding on to this tree. I don't know how much longer I can take. I'm going to have to cut out, John, because I don't think it's John. I'm blowing away. I'm not going to make it, John. Oh my gosh. And cut. We can all do this. Now, the most embarrassing part is the fact that she did have to admit, they had to admit it, that they were wrong, but not before Wyatt Reed called them out. So, you know, the gray zone was on this one. They were on it. Let's get to it here. So, scandal deepens around CNN's Clarissa Ward staging Syria prison scene. And I want to go to this part right about here. I told you everybody's talking about this because it's just crazy. I think I wanted to start with this part right here, the fact checking. U.S. government-aligned site exposes CNN Syria prison theater. According to a Western-backed fact-checking organization known as Verify, Adil Garbal is actually Salama Mohammed Salama, who they identified as the first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence, a figure they claim was notorious for his activities in Homs. This guy was not a civilian. He was a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence. This guy was intelligence. But CNN told you this civilian. He's just this is bad for CNN. Verify, which describes itself as a verified signatory of the International Fact Checker Network and a trusted partner of Facebook in the MENA region since 2019. They write that the residents of the Al Bayada neighborhood identified him as frequently stationed at a checkpoint in the area's western entrance, infamous for its abuses. So the guy who was sitting here pretending as though he had been abused was one of the people doing the abusing. Like, you can't get any worse than this. This is a part of CNN Investigates. It's not like CNN, took a story from another network and said, this is what this network reported. No, this is CNN Investigates. They were there. I can't do this. I can't. This is too terrible. Per Verify, Salama was in prison due to his involvement in theft and extortion, and his recent incarceration, lasting less than a month, was due to a dispute over profit sharing of extorted funds. But CNN told you he was there for 3 months. Like, I'm not doing this to them. They're doing it to themselves. It's like the movie Liar, Liar, when Jim Carrey's character says, they're like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm kicking my ass. This is a crazier part too. The IFCN's parent group, the Poynter Institute, has taken huge sums from organizations including George Soros Open Society Foundation and the CIA cutout National Endowment for Democracy. In 2017, Poynter took in a whopping $1.3 million from OSF and the Udmir Foundation, the main vessel for spending by Democratic Party aligned billionaire Pierre Omidyar. Given its U.S. aligned financial ties, Verify has little incentive to undercut CNN's regime change narrative. So, can we give a shout out to Wyatt Reed for this? Give a shout out to the Gray Zone for this one. We gotta play the music, fam. We gotta do it. It's time to bump it. Hey! Hey! Look at me. Woo! And we'll fade it up. I got to get that working right at one point. One day I'll get a soundboard. You guys know how it is. But shout out to the Gray Zone for not falling for the okey doke. And of course, CNN did have to come forward and acknowledge this themselves. This is seriously the chef's kiss, you guys. You see, CNN, they were trying to play the game. They were trying to play and they got caught. They got caught. They were busted, fam. So here's their apology. Prisoner CNN help free from Syrian prison was actually notorious Assad regime torturer. Like, you can't make this up, man. You can't do it. It goes, it says here, the network went viral last week with footage of the startled prisoner being led from the prison by journalist Clarissa Ward, who called it one of the most extraordinary moments I have witnessed in her 20 years of reporting. But independent and unbiased fact checkers Verify published a detailed report Sunday saying that the seemingly innocent prisoner was actually Salama Mohammed. Salama, a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence. It goes on to say here, we have subsequently been investigating his background and are aware that he may have given a false identity. CNN acknowledged to the Post. Let's say it one more time for the people in the back. We have subsequently been investigating his background and are aware that he may have given a false identity. You know, I see this as a win for independent media because we've been trying to tell you guys, these people are liars. These people, they have gone so far as they got some dude who is pretending to be some civilian. They got this guy who they said was a civilian. They didn't do. Now they're looking into his background. They didn't look into his background before. I thought they're journalists. What did Saul Goodman say from Better Call Saul? What does he say? I'm a lawyer. So I thought they were journalists. They didn't do any research. This guy could have been anybody. And they had to admit it publicly. So again, I see this as a win for independent media because, again, I think this is part of the reason why CNN's ratings are decreasing. I think it's why MSNBC's ratings are decreasing because people are seeing through the BS. You guys have been lying to people for years. For years. That dramatic filming was too much. That was just too much to me. Oh my God, John, we're over here. We're just trying to figure out, and I don't know if we can move, and I don't know what's going to happen. So, come on. It's a dramatic effect. It's a way to boost ratings, and they didn't even look into the guy. And they will deny and say that other independent investigative journalists are propaganda when they're actually there on the ground doing the research and they were able to find out who this guy was, but CNN wasn't. Dreamwalker said it was too much. It was too much. A little bit. Just a little bit. Oh my gosh. Yes, we are going to do call in tonight, guys. And I have one more story that I do want to cover. But let's go ahead and go to the comments. Geez, that was a doozy. Thank you so much, Troy. Congrats, Sabby. What a beautiful act of kindness. Thank you. Thank you, Kinman. Clarissa Ward is very attractive, though. Kinman looking at the physical. Kinman's like, let's get physical. Thank you, Courtney. And he doesn't even look funky either. What does funky look like? Oh my God. Thank you. Do all things with love. Richard Medhurst also noted that is way too much closeness / touching for a female journalist, especially. Yeah, that was weird. Thank you, Troy. Not the Blair Witch Project angle. Thanks, Courtney. CNN should be on Tubi for this. And thank you, NK. Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons look like tortured prisoners. He looks like you just got out of work. That's right. Teddy says CNN committing journalistic suicide before our eyes, ably assisted by Clarissa Ward. A fine piece of work there. And thank you, JB. Clarissa explains it all. Oh my God, I used to love that show. All we need is Sam. You need Sam to come in through the window. And Clarissa turn around and go, "Hi, Sam." And thank you, P. Smith. He's a torturer. Exactly. And CNN wanted you to feel sorry for him. Wow. I've seen low things, but that is the lowest of the low. On the low. Let's get the Rumble rant, Eric. Oh my gosh. Thank you, RB Ham. Clarissa must have given AOC printers for her act on January 6th. Oh my gosh, man. Yikes. Okie dokie. All right, guys, go ahead and smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. And we are going to dive into our final story tonight. Players want to play. That's the theme tonight. And AOC has been one of those players, and it seems it has backfired on her finally at this point in time. Now, there's a number of people that saw what happened between AOC and Nancy Pelosi with the oversight committee race. And they're just like, man, that's really crazy. Really crazy how Nancy Pelosi just stabbed AOC in the back like that. No, not really. Not really. And then there are others that are saying, well, I can't believe that AOC is even considering not supporting anyone who's a primary challenger. All of this came out within 48 hours, by the way. All of this is connected. But I think sometimes people forget what AOC said about Nancy Pelosi before she even won. All of us remember when she was protesting inside Nancy Pelosi's office after she won. We all remember that. How many of you remember this? How many of you remember this before she won, what she said about Nancy Pelosi? Peep this.
Party. Joe Crowley was thought to be the next Democratic leader, maybe at the end of this year, and maybe the next Speaker of the House. He's out of the picture now. Nancy Pelosi is the Democratic leader. She says she wants to run again and serve again as the party leader. Do you want to support her for that?
Well, let me win the election first in November before I make commitments. But I think that she's one. I think she's a candidate to consider, and I think that when it comes to the leadership of the party, that's a conversation that I have once I'm an elected member of Congress.
So no commitment going in. Have you heard from her today in the last 24 hours?
I spoke with her, and she was incredibly kind. Incredibly kind.
What did she say to you?
She said that. She loved working with Joe, but that she's actually always wanted younger women in Congress, and that men tend to run at younger ages and women tend to run at older ages, and that she's actually very happy to see, some new blood, and I look forward to meeting her in that chamber.
She was looking forward to some new blood. I wanted to show you that for a reason. I wanted to show you that because, again, that was before AOC won. And think about the way that she spoke about Nancy Pelosi right there in that interview. She said she was really nice. She was open to younger people coming into Congress. She's open to changes and all that stuff. Changes. We can bust out some Avril Lavigne and say everything's changing. I don't know. But then later on, AOC did win. She did protest inside Nancy Pelosi's office. And then at some point, there must have been another conversation because she decided to get in line. Remember this?
Nancy Pelosi, that's Mama Bear of the Democratic Party. You know that.
So that was one of the at least several attempts over the last few years that Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tried to make nice with Nancy Pelosi. And we're seeing this week what that actually bought her in practice, because Mama Bear has no interest in ever passing the bear torch to the next generation of bear leadership.
He was right. So I just wanted you to see that part there, because John was right. She had no intention of doing that. But AOC thought that if she continued to kiss up to Nancy Pelosi for quite some time, things would go her way. She wanted to play games. But it seems that Nancy Pelosi had a chess move of her own. Because you see, while AOC was seeking the leadership position for the Oversight Committee, it appears that Nancy Pelosi didn't want her to have it, boo. Nancy Pelosi did not want AOC to have that position. And not only did she not want her to have it, but she was vocal about it. Vocal about this. Not for you. Nancy Pelosi trying to tank AOC's House Oversight Committee bid. Yes, she was. Oh, yes, she was. It goes on to say here, Pelosi, 84, would rather see Representative Jerry Connolly serve as a ranking member on the high-profile panel and is actively working to tank AOC's bid. That was according to Punchbowl News. The former Speaker of the House has been making calls urging Democrats to support Connolly, 74, over AOC, 35, in the outlet reported on Thursday. So after all of that kissing up to Nancy Pelosi, after AOC trying to play the Democrat leadership game, after her going to the DNC convention and telling people that Kamala was working tirelessly for a ceasefire, only to get called out by her comrade Ilhan Omar afterwards for the lies, after her going after Jill Stein and calling her names and predatory, all of these things that AOC did to further her own political career while kissing the ass of Dem leadership has backfired in her own face. Because what this shows you is that all this sucking up to Dem leadership means absolutely nothing if you're not the person that they want. And AOC is not the person that Nancy Pelosi wanted. There's been a lot of ass kissing going around, folks. Pelosi has publicly backed Connolly candidacy, but the scope of the powerful Democrats' lobbying campaign was previously unknown. Connolly and AOC are in a heated intra-party race to replace current Oversight Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin. So let's see how that played out, right? So Nancy Pelosi made that pretty public. She was making phone calls, picking up calls, just like she made phone calls to tell Biden, get people together to tell them to get Biden out of the race. She was making phone calls. And she said, you know what? We're going to have to do everything that we can to make sure that we maintain the status quo in the Democratic Party. Now, AOC has kind of moved over to the status quo for the most part anyway, but she's still not one of them to their perspective. They still don't see her as quite as one of us, even after she's done all that ass kissing. So after all of that, something weird happened. Same day, Nancy Pelosi apparently fell. I don't know if that was supposed to be like a karma thing or what. I don't know if it was a jinx, but she fell. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi undergoes hip replacement after sustaining injuries in Europe. A spokesperson for Pelosi described her condition as well on the mend. So all this was happening the same day. The same day. Listen to this.
Is, quote, on the mend after having surgery this morning in Germany. We're going to head right to NBC's Gary Grumbach with all the details on Capitol Hill. What happened, Gary? What kind of surgery?
Uh-oh, I accidentally hit the wrong thing. Sorry, guys. Let me see if I can do it this way. There we go.
She is, quote, on the mend after having surgery this morning in Germany. We're going to head right to NBC's Gary Grumbach with all the details on Capitol Hill. What happened, Gary? What kind of surgery she had and what led to it?
Hey there, Alex. Yeah, 84-year-old former Speaker Nancy Pelosi was on a congressional delegation trip to Luxembourg to mark the 80th anniversary of the World War II Battle of the Bulge when she fell during an official event on Friday. She was taken to a local hospital in Luxembourg and then was airlifted. She was medevaced from Luxembourg to a hospital near Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. We have a statement from her spokesman here just minutes ago saying earlier this morning, Speaker Emerita Pelosi underwent a successful hip replacement and is well on the mend. Speaker Pelosi is grateful to U.S. military staff at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center and medical staff at Hospital Kirchberg for their excellent care and kindness. Now, Alex, Landstuhl is the largest American hospital outside of the United States, so she is certainly in good care, but no word yet on when she will be making it back to the United States. Hip replacement surgeries generally take a few days to recover from in terms of getting out of the hospital. Certainly for an 84-year-old, that will be the case as well. Alex.
I just want to add this part. I'm sorry, but my dad had hip replacement surgery many years ago, and it takes longer than a few days. So just going to tell you that one. Like it takes longer than a few days to recover. But what this points to again is that we need term limits, damn it. Nancy Pelosi is 84 years old. 84 years old. But the old guard of the Democratic Party does not want to go away. That's why you saw Dianne Feinstein still being rolled into Congress, and she didn't even know what was going on. She was incoherent, and you still see them. They still had her there until she died. What is happening here? Who did they sign their souls over to? Ask yourself that question. Why are you still there and you don't know what's going on? Why aren't you retiring and spending your time at home with your family members? Somebody let me know what is going on. We need term limits. And that could never thus be the case when it comes to Jerry Connolly, because Nancy Pelosi's phone calls worked. They worked because you'll see it here. Jerry Connolly wins oversight committee ranking member spot inside the steering committee. Now, inside the steering committee, it was 34 to 27. So people were saying it's still close. He said, this isn't over yet. AOC has a real shot to win inside the full Democratic caucus. That's a better room for her, says one Democrat. Really? Connolly went on to defeat AOC to lead Democrats' oversight panel. And we can look at the votes here. It was 131 to 84. So he went on to win that position. George Connolly is 74 years old. And just in November, he announced that he was diagnosed with cancer. Nancy Pelosi made phone calls to Democrat politicians and told them not to vote for AOC, to vote for George Connolly, the 74-year-old man who was just diagnosed with cancer. If that isn't enough, AOC and friends, to show you that they don't want you leading anything, I don't know what else is. And this is no shade to people who are older or to anyone that is diagnosed with cancer. But you guys get my point. This makes no damn sense. Anything to keep the old guard in power. And this is exactly why I continue to tell you that the squad members in the Democratic Party will not get any type of leverage going forward. When they had it, they should have used it. When they had that narrow majority, they should have used it. They didn't use it. Now you can't get anything. They just blocked her. Her mama bear buddy just came in and blocked her and said, no, you will not be taking this position. Well, Nancy Pelosi told me she welcomes women coming into Congress and she's looking for new energy and new change. Honey, Nancy lied to you. Nancy was playing a game. You were playing checkers. You thought you was playing chess, but Nancy was playing chess and she beat you. Never underestimate the power of the old guard in these parties. Never underestimate it. They know a lot more than you. They have more connections than you, and they know how to make things their way when they see fit. 74-year-old George Connolly. So you ask me, has the Democratic Party, Dem leadership learned anything from Kamala's loss? No, they don't care. Nancy Pelosi don't give a fuck. Nancy Pelosi go home to her refrigerator full of ice cream in San Francisco. Nancy Pelosi's not sweating about paying for this hip replacement surgery because members of Congress have great health care. It's probably all covered. We have to get past the partisan divide, and we got to start focusing on top bottom. This is why I keep saying this, top bottom. What AOC should be doing is she should be calling out Nancy Pelosi's ass, but she's not going to. Just like Bernie Sanders wouldn't for so many times. They should be calling these people out. So all those years of playing that game got you absolutely nowhere. And Kate said it best. Kate Willett, I don't know if you guys follow her. She's a comedian. She's really funny. Lied about an ongoing genocide on Prime TV. Was the number one person trying to revive Biden's campaign after everyone saw he wasn't mentally fit. Voted to break a strike and didn't even get the committee appointment. Insider strategy working great. She got nothing. She still got nowhere. Nowhere. Where you going? Nowhere. And then there was this part, which is probably the most damning of all. Representative AOC privately signaled to the Democrats that she might no longer back congressional primary challenges to her colleagues, according to 3 people familiar with her remarks. Isn't this hypocritical of AOC? She privately signaled to Democrats that she might no longer back congressional primary challenges to her colleagues. Didn't she primary challenge Joe Crowley? Where's the Justice Democrats' position on this? Well, I may not approve of any primary challengers if that'll help me get that leadership position. She was even willing to go that far, and they still didn't let her have it. You can't get any lower than this, folks. The question had been raised when New York Progressive made her case in the Steering and Policy Committee meeting for why she should be the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee. It would mark a departure for the outspoken progressive who came to Congress by primarying a Democratic leader and has also backed challenges to other sitting lawmakers since then. But it wouldn't be the only departure. There was the departure when she conflated anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. There was the departure when she voted to back, to back the railroad workers' strike efforts to go against the railroad workers going on strike. That was a departure. There was a departure when she wouldn't vote against the Iron Dome. There's been multiple departures. So if we had to pull out and we had to say like someone was really played, because the theme of the show is players want to play, AOC got played. Nancy Pelosi probably told her first year, you follow my lead and you'll go far. And she probably really ate that up. Well, let me go ahead and do that and I can have a political career. And guess who stabs you in and Nancy didn't stab her in the front. She did it privately and made those phone calls in the dark. So she stabbed you in the back. Players, they gonna play. And haters, they gonna hate. Ballers, they gonna ball. Shot callers, they gonna call. AOC got played. But let this be a lesson to everybody. You know what it shows you? Once again, it shows you that that insider strategy does not work. All right, guys, we are going to do call in tonight. Eric's going to come on for just a second. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back. We'll do call in and we'll do the damn thing. Hey.
Yes, indeed. Hey, all right. We are going to do call in. All right. So this is the part of the show where Sabby takes a little break before we transition over to the Zoom hangout that we also call in, because it used to be call in, but then they got rid of the call in app. So now we do it on Zoom, which is just about as good anyway. So yeah, we'll be giving you the link for that shortly. Sabby's actually making the room on Zoom as we speak, I think, or shortly. And yeah, we'll give you that link. Whether or not you have your camera on is optional. Most people just have the camera off and talk to us. You can talk to us about the various topics on tonight's show, whether it's AOC, we had Chris Rock, we had CNN Busted, we had ABC News, we had our guest, or anything else you want to talk about. So we'll be transitioning to that shortly. I've got a few chats here, can read out. Yeah, this one, Matthew saying Mama Bear is eating her cub. And Troy saying that she thought she was one of the cool kids. And Crystal Young, who said she keeps showing people who she really is, talking about AOC. And yeah, I mean, what occurs to me about that story is that it's really the role of the like, you can't even call them progressive, but I call them like fake progressives or faux progressives, but the role of the fake progressive left, isn't to get into leadership and be a real power. Their role is to be the controlled opposition out, up, pushed off and onto the kids' table. And in that way, and the reason, like, systemically they want that is because people look for people who get that the leadership in the system is corrupt and isn't working for them. They want some place to put that energy and that support and whatnot. So then they put up this fake left. They say, oh, well, go for AOC and go for Bernie. And then, they'll get you what you need and they'll fix the Democrats and whatnot. And of course it's, what the lesson we've learned now, I think most of us here on what I would call out here on the real left, is that any left movement in the Democratic Party is fake. It's out there to draw attention and support away from the real problems and the real issues, or at least to siphon it off in a way that still doesn't threaten power. It still, allows. It's all about the uniparty and the duopoly and just getting everybody's support and attention in there and not looking, so don't you dare look over at that green candidate or that independent candidate and say, well, why don't we all get together and support them? That's where the real threats to power are. And like Sabby, which is saying, it's not like Democrat, Republican, left, right. I mean, that's not where the real battle is. The real battle is up and down. And I always like to frame it as, the real battle is between the billionaires, the top 0.1%, and the rest of us. And is the more people that realize that, like, I think our real number one goal in all this is to educate people to those kind of bare facts. And if we can get a critical mass of people getting to that point, then something real can start happening. Now, I think it's going to have to even get to that point and get to people in the streets, like we had with like George Floyd protest style times, like 100 times 1,000. Then I would say we have a shot at real change. But I think that's the biggest challenge, is how do we inspire those many people, that kind of millions, to coalesce around, as I think it needs to be a clear and concise set of demands that can power a movement. And that's, what I like to talk about and try to push for and see how it can happen. And I'll remind people, we'll be going to the Zoom hangout soon. This is the little in-between spot. and yeah, with like the old guard, like why are these old people still in there and whatnot? And I would say it's because they're very well versed and well trained at serving the power. What's the power? The power is the money, the big money, the billionaire class that really own and control things. And if you can, so the people that are in there, like and wondering why did Kamala get that role and that shot at it? It's because she's really good at serving the power. And these old folks, as we'll politely call them, like Pelosi and these others, that's their big talent is just making sure that the power forces get what they want. And that too much money, sure, it doesn't go to that 99% or anything like that. And I think it's always important for us to connect those dots and always tie it back to the billionaires and the big money. And the other part in doing that is that can also lead you to some demands and solutions that can really get us somewhere. I think the left discourse has to get beyond simply laying out what the problems are, as important as that is. You need that education. But then we got to get to what are our demands and what are our solutions. And what I like to posit is that if you look at how the power structure works, where's the weak link? Like, where is the place that we could do something about it if we get together by the millions? And, I would posit that the weak link is trying to cut that connection between the billionaires, their resources and their money, and the Congress and the presidency. Right now, they're allowed to just funnel all the money they want into the political system, into the government, and control it that way. And so our demand, our key change needs to be to cut those puppet strings. And that comes down to things like, the public financing of campaigns, to real campaign regulation. And then that runs into the brick wall of the Supreme Court until you fix that. And so I think a key part of any real fix to these problems, to these systems, has to be that constitutional amendment that says money is not speech and corporations are not people. And it's a tough lift doing that constitutional amendment, but it can also be a rallying point. And it can be a thing like you can ask of anyone who has any position of power, like, what are you doing towards that? Isn't that what we really need? And doesn't then that connect in to, the rest of the demands, which need to be dialed to 11? Well, we have 11 demands and things like, we need real health care. We need, the whole list of things, ending the wars and whatnot. And with healthcare, I mean, we need to be saying, as a real left movement, that health insurance just as a concept is immoral. Like, just health insurance shouldn't even exist. But why does it exist? Well, it's a money game. It's, it all kicks into billionaire profits. And there's this direct line between health insurance existing and billionaires having all this wealth and money. So anyways, connect the dots and we can talk about this and everything in the Zoom Hangout, formerly known as Call-In. But we still call it Call-In.
That's right. So we will head on over to Zoom. Let me go ahead and I like to open it on the show. So if you're new, you may not know this, but the Zoom link is pinned to the top of the live chat, right? So it's pinned at the very top and you'll see a passcode, which from my experience, usually it doesn't ask for it, but I'll put it here anyway. Let me just go ahead and put it here. And then Eric will show you, you can just go to sabbysabs2.com as well.
Sabs2.com.
That's that passcode. I'll go ahead and open the room on the show just to make sure people can get in. I like to do that. I think it's good to make sure people can get in. Let me mute myself on there. All right. And I see people are already coming into the Zoom room. And then also for those of you that catch this later, because if you start the live stream right after I end, you're not going to see the live chat just yet. We ask you to mute yourself when you enter the Zoom room. Thank you. And the way this works is go to sabbysabs2.com and you'll also get that Zoom link and you'll get the passcode as well. That's probably the easiest way for people to do it. And then also,
you can make me co-host.
Yeah, I'll make you the co-host, Eric. If you raise your hand, I can find you.
Just did it.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, and then I also want to tell people who are new and don't know about this, the way that you get to speak is at the very bottom of the Zoom, there is an option that says reactions. There's an option that says raise hand. If you just click on raise your hand, that lets me know who wants to speak. Otherwise, if you don't raise your hand, I don't know if you want to speak. And it helps maintain the conversation there. So again, sabbysabs2.com. You can go to that for the call in.
And we're trying to stop by midnight. So keep it short.
Yeah, we're trying to. I'm interviewing. I'm recording an interview with Professor Richard Wolff tomorrow. So I want to make sure that I do maintain my hard stop tonight on call in. And I'll explain this Thursday and Friday, how next week is going to go, because next week is Christmas. So I will be taking a break next week from streaming, but I will upload videos. So just be aware of that. But I'll be back live again on Thursday.
See you in there.
All right. So we will go ahead and head on over to the Zoom call in. Everyone, please mute yourself when you enter the Zoom room. Thank you. All right. We'll go ahead and do that. We'll head on over there. I'll see you guys there. Have a good night. And keep up the fight.